Hello.
Hey,
There we are. It's better than a national switchboard. Okay.
I do not know where the guest is.
Oh, Kristen's on. Hi, Kristen.
She's not actually. I set up the computer in case she decides to sit down.
Oh,
I preemptively set up the.
no Mika appearances? Okay.
I don't know. She's not looking too happy.
Why doesn't she look too happy?
Stomach's upset. My show tends to upset many people's stomach. George is throwing up right now, live on the air. We're doing our sharing. We're actually going to be done with that relatively soon. Might have enough time to run. Wait for this. Might have time to make a run for it. Don't always tend to realize on a week-to-week basis how many groups this program goes to. Except when I have to share it somewhere. That is 98 shares this week. All right, let me make a quick. Oops. Make a quick run. I shall return.
Before you do, make me host.
I did it.
Oh, you did? Okay, great.
Volume all the way down. Be right back, kids. Oh. Oh, and look at that, 459. And there's Sergio. Just when I was losing my mind.
Hey Jeff, hey, how are you?
Hey, how are you?
Hey.
There he is. Beautiful.
How are you guys? Is the audio coming in okay?
Yeah, sounds like you're on a phone, but that's
Okay.
perfectly fine. It's not an issue at all. Please don't panic about that.
Okay.
I'm glad that you have the
needed.
Oh, I'm glad you have the buds in. Sometimes it's only happened, gosh, maybe once or twice in the almost 3 years that we've fed back on, we come out your speakers and then back into the microphone, and that gets monumentally confusing. We are going to go live here in just a moment.
Hey, Jeff, how come you don't have your Hawaiian shirt on?
Yeah, I know I should, right?
Come on, you
That's
should
right.
have one.
If I owned one, you know what I need? I need let's see if anybody gets the reference, especially folks on Facebook. If I had a Glenn Quagmire shirt, I'd be wearing it right now. Anybody? Just the geek. Just the geek. Just the geek.
I get it.
Giggity. Okay, let's okay. Wow. Okay, 5 o'clock. That's right. One more minute. Just one more moment. Give our 101. Okay, we're at 5:01. We will be live in. Oh, hello. There we go. In 5, 4, 3. Oh, I forgot to do something really important. I just killed my own countdown there. 16. Okay. Okay. 3, 2, 1.
Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
Do you want a man for president who's seasoned through and through, but not so doggone seasoned that he won't try something new? A man who's old enough to know
And young enough to do.
well, it's up to you, it's up to you. It's strictly up to you.
But it's Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
Do you want a man with spirit who is not afraid to fight?
A man whose record shows that he will fight for what is right.
A loyal man who'll bring the job a fresh new point of view? Well, it's up to you, it's up to you. It's strictly up to you.
Cause it's Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
And do you deny to any man the right he's guaranteed to be elected president, no matter what his creed?
It's promised in the Bill of Rights to which we must be true.
So it's up to you, it's up to you. It's strictly up to you.
And it's Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
Do you like a man who answers straight, a man who's always fair?
We'll measure him against the others, and when you compare, you cast your vote for Kennedy and a change that's overdue. So it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you.
Yes, it's Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
Welcome, welcome, welcome from my humble second bedroom here in the Saucon Valley, here in Bethlehem Landfill Township, a wholly owned subsidiary of Waste Management, seeing as they purchased our township council this past fall. And I'll keep saying that until someone serves me with a lawsuit, and then I'll say it even louder, because facts are facts. From my humble second bedroom here in the Saucon Valley, part of the Lehigh Valley in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, part of these United States, on this planet Earth, the only one we have. Third rock from the sun in the Terran solar system, part of the Milky Way galaxy. This is the Kennedy Effect live for the 16th of January, 2022. So if you laid a shiny penny that I was going to say 21, like I did last week, gotcha. You all owe me a penny. Wherever you might be across the Facebook universe, we have shared the program to 100 places. Actually just shy. I think it was 98 when I started, but it'll be more as we continue. It'll go to 100 or more places across the Facebook universe. Thank you for being there. To every group, to every page, to every individual that shares this program and allows us to share the program onto your different different places. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being there. We appreciate it. We could not be here if you are not there. I say it every week, but it is also it's just the truth. We couldn't be there without you. So we thank you for being there. Thank you very, very much. But wherever you may be, continue to watch, enjoy, listen in the background if you're having dinner, getting the kids ready for school, getting ready for a major winter storm here in the Northeast. Whatever it is that you might be doing, stay where you are, continue to watch and listen, or as always, we strongly invite you to come and visit us at our home group Facebook page, That Other Side of Information, where you can comment, ask questions, agree, disagree, yell, stand up, yell, scream, love me, hate me. If you call names, make them a little gentle and fragile. Do that. We just want you to be part of the program. So thank you for being here with us. To our sisters and brothers and friends and family at hot101.net, welcome home. Welcome back to the program. We appreciate you allowing us to be part of your Sunday. Whether you are on your desktop, your laptop, your tablet, your phone, if you're Bluetoothing in the car, and now, of course, America's favorite new game show, Can Jeff Trigger Alexa? You can now say, hey, Alexa, play hot101.net. If you do not know how to listen to hot101.net, I do not know what you are waiting for, folks. It is very, very simple. The web address is our own name. It's hot101.net. If you have an Apple device, you can go to the Apple App Store and search for hot101.net. If you have an Android device, you can go to the Google Play Store and also search for hot101.net. Any type of device that can use the TuneIn radio app, you can go there as well. Go to the search bar and search for hot101.net. And of course, our friends and family that we are very proud to be part of at TCP, the Culture Professional, their internet radio, WTCP, their Roku channel. Yes, this face is on TV. The face for radio is actually on TV. You can see them on Roku every morning, too. The morning show will return tomorrow as well. They have a very large Facebook presence. So that is WTCP, and we are thrilled to be part of them as well. Without any further delay, let me introduce our guest. Well, let me catch you up on a couple of things. We're expecting a major winter storm here in the Lehigh Valley. I can see from one of my screens that I'm monitoring that there seems to be a bit of a lag. I am freezing and then it jumps. I don't see the closed captioning, which is generally automatically generated. I do see you when you come in. We appreciate you. I believe everything is going okay. George will let me certainly give me a big shout if we somehow crash or something like that. But to say, we're here. You might be seeing a very skippy makes it sound fun, but it's not exactly what I'm talking about. You might be seeing a very intermittent video feed, but we are here. Don't worry about that. We're here. It could just be my own home internet. I have no idea. It could be the storm that we're expecting. It's supposed to be very, very windy, very, very cold, and we're expecting all sorts of precipitation, the whole kit and caboodle. So don't give up on us. If the Facebook feed looks a little jumpy and a little weird and it freezes every now and then, just hang in there. And always remember that you can get the audio part of the program at hot101.net and WTCP. You don't need to. Now, Sergio might want you to stare at his handsome face for the next few hours. You do not need to see this face for the next few hours, I guarantee you. So we'll stare at the candidate. Don't stare at me. But if we are jumpy or laggy by any means, please just hang in there with us. I think it might be a bit of a weather issue as well as a little bit of internet problem. And speaking of that handsome face, let me get to our guest, who is kind enough to join us and take a lot of time out of his day because, and when I say take time out of his day, I mean time out of his day, a 5-hour time difference from us to what I have labeled, I don't think this is the official nickname of the state, but the Paradise State, let's just be blunt, of Hawaii. And I think I may have even done my inflection correctly there by saying Hawaii. I think I might have gotten that correct. I'm pretty good for the Irish guy who's never been to Hawaii anyway. I've actually never been past the No, I was. Did I pass the Mississippi? I think I might have once. We don't travel much, Americans, do we? He's really kind enough to join us. I'm very excited about this program. I've been talking about this guest and this appearance for probably since December, because it's very, very exciting to have somebody from outside the Northeast and outside the area. I've been very, very blessed to have so many wonderful friends, make new friendships, and have wonderful, wonderful guests from Pennsylvania, New York State, New Jersey. We will have upcoming guests from Ohio and Kentucky and so on, but Hawaii is a big deal to me. Well, of course, Amy was from West Virginia from last week. Well, what not was, she is from West Virginia, but joining us last week. And it's just really exciting to get guests from outside of our region. And you can't get too much further outside our region than Hawaii. So we're just thrilled to have him. I am going to let you, sir, pronounce your last name because I forgot to ask, which is very, very, very just not a good thing of me to do. I've been playing it in my head about 12 different ways. And I think one of the most disrespectful things you can do is really butcher somebody's name. So I don't want to do that. I will allow you to introduce yourself. Sergio, welcome to the program.
Hi, Jeff. Thank you so much for having me. And of course, while you're talking about the winter storm here or out there in the Northeast, it's probably like 80 degrees out here and it's super sunny. I was thinking about doing this outside just to show you.
Oh, sure. Rub it in. Rub it in. Why don't you? Rub it in. Why don't you?
That's not a great idea. But yeah.
Pronounce your
Hawaii.
last name for me so I don't butcher it, because I actually think that is really highly disrespectful to have that done. And I hate when I do it, even if I do it by accident. So I said, I've been playing your last name in my head and trying to think of the proper way to pronounce it, but I would really not be pleased with myself if I butchered it. So please, you pronounce it for me.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that. It's Alcubilla.
I would have butchered it.
Alcubilla.
I would have goofed it. I was going to go Billa, like Spanish.
That's probably the closest one. That's right.
I was going to go, well, see, okay. That's why we don't do these things. Leave it to the professional. Leave it to the guy who grew up with the name. He would know how to say it best. Let me start first off again by thanking you so much, because I know it is 12, just shy of 12:15 where you are. There's a 5-hour time difference from us to you. So I appreciate you taking the middle of your Sunday. I'm sure, when it's 80 and sunny, there's a lot of different things that you could be doing. So we appreciate it very, very much. It's a real thrill to have someone from not just outside our region, but well outside our region. And I actually do, this is kind of a milestone show for me. And I really do appreciate you being here. I very, very, very much. Let me begin by asking you the same opening question that we ask every guest. I mean, literally everybody. It's open-ended, and it's open-ended on purpose because I want you to give me whatever comes to your brain. Who is Sergio, and how did you get here?
Jeff, let me just begin by saying thank you for having me on this show. It really is an honor and a pleasure for me to be here and to speak to your listeners. First of all, I'm not a career politician. This is I've never run for political office before. This is my first campaign. I've been a legal aid attorney for the last 10 years. My focus has really been on serving the community and serving the public. Being not a career politician, I'm answering the call to serve. My biggest frustration is when I feel like the people that I'm serving, the communities that I'm serving, are just being ignored. And that's probably one of my biggest frustrations. This past year during the pandemic, I'm a board member for this other organization called the Hawaii Workers Center, and we were advocating for unemployed workers, that weren't getting their unemployment insurance, and it was months already. So we were holding rallies at our state capitol, asking our legislators, "Hey, do something about this. What can you do to help, the community with their unemployment insurance?" And a lot of times, our calls were being they were falling on deaf ears. And it was just super frustrating for me just to see that. And just this sense that a lot of our legislators, they would take calls from the Chamber of Commerce, but for the everyday person on the street, unless you were rich or unless you had power or unless you had connections to people that did, a lot of times their voices were being ignored. And I said to myself, hey, you know what? I'm going to go in there and I'm going to provide a voice for the people in the community that I serve. And that's why I'm running for office. It's critical, that we have people in office that understand, what people are going through, that understand kind of these lived experiences that people are going through. And that's what my campaign is really about. It's going to be people powered and people centered. And I'm really excited for this campaign. I'm going against Representative Ed Case. He's our current incumbent. And in 2018, he ran on a platform of experience. He's been a congressman before, and he ran on name recognition. And his thing was that he's been to DC before, and that's why he needs to go back. But people with experience, this is where we are today. And I just feel like we need people that know what everyday people are going through and that understand what people are going through to provide a better voice in Congress.
I want to thank you for something very different that you just did and maybe not even knew it or thought about it. And there's one of these interesting kind of cardinal rules in politics is that you don't talk too much about your opponent, because it's kind of free advertising in a way. But at the same time, you have an obligation, not just to the folks that you're campaigning to, the folks that you're speaking to, but kind of to yourself, that you have to differentiate yourself from, in this case, Mr. Case. So what, very basic question, what's the difference? What's the difference between you and Mr. Case?
Oh, even though we're both attorneys.
Or do you know where to start?
Yeah, I know. That's right. No, even though we're both attorneys, we both have legal training, but we completely come from different sides. He's been an attorney for mostly on the corporate side, and I've been mostly on the Legal Aid Society of Hawaii side, representing vulnerable communities. And just our upbringings are so different. He comes more from a privileged family. I don't know if you're familiar with the Case family, but I believe his brother or cousin is the AOL Case. That was, I think, a few years back when AOL was still strong. But they come from kind of that side. For me, just a little bit about my history. I was actually born in the Philippines. I came to the United States when I was 7 years old. My father was in the military, my mom was a nurse. When I was 6, my father was gunned down by a communist hit squad 2 blocks away from our home. And just that memory, I know I've spoken about it a few times, but every time I think about it, it still kind of hits me. I just remember just hearing gunfire at night, in the middle of the night, and us just wondering what was happening, and us being ushered into a safe part of the home, and just being scared for our lives, really not sure what was happening. And then just the next day to find out that it was my dad and some of his men that were gunned down just a block or 2 away. And that experience. My mom was in the United States at the time. She was working as a nurse over here, and for her to come back home to the Philippines and have to bury my dad, it's one of those things that I still think about often. My mom, she had 5 young kids, and she was 3 months pregnant at the time. And for her not to be a widow and try to figure out what she's going to do next. I have 2 kids of my own. I have a 10-year-old daughter and a 7-year-old son. But at the time, for my mom, just to think what is she going to do next? So she decided to take me with her to the United States. She left the rest of my siblings behind, and we ended up going to Newark, New Jersey was my first experience with this country. And I just remember, just the diversity in people there. For me, it was really eye-opening seeing people from different cultures, different races. But I could see how hard my mom was working. She worked multiple shifts, in the hospital, and she would leave me at home by myself. And the way I learned English was watching TV, watching soap operas and watching Jeopardy, and it helped me with my English. But of course, it was super challenging for my mom to try to care for me. by herself. So she sent me to live with my aunt in Virginia. And, for the next few years, I lived with them. And it was really there that I could assimilate better into this country. I remember my first experience in first grade, walking into the classroom and just not knowing how to speak English and just being made fun of for that. And, I just made a determination that I was going to work hard every single day and do well in school. And of course, the next year, I was super proud when I got straight A's. But that's my experience. And my mom, she saved enough money. She brought the rest of my siblings to the U.S. But she was a single parent with 6 kids. And in this country, it's really not easy. So I give her a lot of credit. I really thank her for all the hard work that she's done. But to raise 6 kids on your own, I struggled with 2. But for her to do it on her own, I give her a lot of credit. But as a working class family, we know the struggles that people face because we've faced them ourselves. I wasn't born into privilege, and I wasn't born into wealth. But just really this experience growing up, it's been my guiding principle to be able to give back to the families and friends that helped us along the way. And that's why I dedicated my career to public service, and I really enjoyed it. But it's my upbringing that's raised me to be who I am today, and really the example that my mom set. And when I say that, we come from completely different backgrounds with Representative Ed Case, we couldn't be on farther ends of the spectrum. But I'm always going to be for the people, and I'm always going to stand with the people because, that's where I come from.
I'll get back to Representative Case because I find, again, you're doing things that I try to teach other candidates to do. And I think you might even be doing it without knowing it because it's naturally who you are. I can feel and sense, and I think everyone can hear that your differences with Representative Case or the reason you're running are not personal. They are political. They are professional, if you will. They are policy oriented. You mentioned going to the State House in Hawaii and advocating for certain policies and so on, and feeling that you were not heard. Hawaii is a pretty darn blue state. It's considered to be about as blue as it gets in this country any longer, perhaps next to New York, and even they have Republican governors occasionally, Connecticut, California, Washington, Oregon. So what is the disconnect? Maybe is a better way to ask it. What do you think the disconnect is in Hawaii between folks going to petition a government inside even when you're all inside the same party, but yet not still being heard? What is missing in Hawaii?
What's great about Hawaii is just we're one of the more progressive states in the country. Just the blue wave of Democrats that swept into office after Hawaii became a state. It really speaks to the values of Hawaii, of being more inclusive, of thinking for everyday working class people. But I think what has happened is just that one party has dominated so much here in Hawaii that there comes a point when there's people that are running as Democrats, but I believe their principles are really at the core of who they are. They stray from the democratic principles. So, as an example, we shouldn't have problems here passing a minimum wage increase. But, we've got a Democratic governor, we've got a Democratic Senate, we've got a Democratic House, but that was something that we couldn't do last year. And that's kind of where the frustration lies. It's just that for being such a blue state, for being such a progressive state that believes in progressive values, there's that disconnect. And I think what it is just there's people that are running under the Democratic banner that haven't done their part in upholding the democratic principles that we're fighting for.
And of course, you mentioned something as elementary to progressives as a rise in the minimum wage. Hawaii is, if not the most expensive state in the union,
Right.
Because everything that you need, outside is going to sound like a dreadful stereotype. I'm actually trying to be a little pithy and funny.
Thank
Outside of the thing, bananas, pineapples, sugarcane, plantains, outside of the things that you grow in a tropical seafood, outside of what you would grow in a tropical environment, you need everything imported. Is that still correct? Is that still basically correct in Hawaii, that, whether it's gasoline, oil, so many finished products, shall we say, even, from paper towels, clothing, automobiles, trucks, generators, you name it, building materials, even, it's still nearly everything that you need there still needs to be imported. And a rise in the minimum wage would be fundamentally life-changing in a place as expensive as Hawaii as it would be anywhere, but I should think very much so there.
That's right. I mean, our minimum wage right now is $10.10 an hour. So we've been trying to push it for at least $12 an hour, and that's something that we couldn't do last year. And hopefully this year is going to be the year that we can get it through. But that's not a living wage. The living wage, of course, we would probably say it's closer to $18, $19 an hour, but
even $15 an hour still puts you at the federal poverty limit, or right at the cusp of the federal poverty wage. 15, it's a roughly $30,000 a year, and the poverty rate for an individual is actually about 32. So it actually, even a $15 minimum wage, the fight for 15, and all the tremendously good work that they have done, raising awareness of actually what it means to be poor. In an odd way, they've actually shed a hell of a light on what it means to be poor. But even at $15, it's a poverty level.
Yeah, it's still a struggle. And then just going back to what you're saying, Jeff, with us importing a lot of our goods here in Hawaii, I mean, food insecurity is probably one of the biggest issues that we have because we import so much. Our biggest industries or job creators right now is tourism and the military. So when you're dependent on those two, industries or two economies, I mean, it puts us really at the mercy of tourism, and it really puts us at the mercy of the military. But yes, Hawaii is, one of the most expensive states in the country, and for us not to have a minimum wage that's at least closer to the living wage, I feel like it's a travesty. Even for me, even though I was a director at a nonprofit law firm, my salary, it still wasn't enough for a family of four. When my son was born, I had to work a second job in the evening. So, right after I was done working in the office, I would ride my bike and go to the local Macy's in Waikiki and work there until midnight. But just that experience, I mean, so many people here work multiple jobs trying to make ends meet. It's not something that's just, that's common to me, but so many people that I know work multiple jobs. But I have some good stories working at Macy's, selling women's shoes.
Yes. So tell me then, if I'm not making it overly simplified, if I'm not breaking it down too far, the big difference between yourself and Mr. Case and some of the folks in your state house, you're a progressive. So what does that mean to you? What does progressivism mean to you? What is it? You wear the label progressive, and I would assume you campaign as one, you speak to people, and I'm a progressive Democrat. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, for me, it's just a lot of these things are just common sense solutions to some of the problems that we face. No, I'm not a corporate Democrat. When we talk about progressive values, it's really principles that are meant to move this country forward, that are meant to help people. And at the end of the day, I feel like that's what government is really about. Is it's meant to move this country forward. It's meant to help people at the core of it. And sometimes we forget that. But of course, the root word in progressive is progress, right? We've got to be making progress towards our vision of an idea of what really this country stands for. As an immigrant to this country, I'm still very optimistic about this country. I still have a lot of hope for this country. I know that we have a checkered past, but in terms of the vision of what we're trying to be, calling different people from all across the world to come here and be part of this social experiment in government, to be part of this democracy. I believe deeply in that we need to keep going towards the ideal of what this country is all about. But the progressive values that I push, it's really at the heart of it is what can we do to make life better and easier for people here in this country.
Has Hawaii had any of the voting difficulties that some other states have had? We've seen voter suppression laws introduced, not always passed on, thank goodness, but introduced even in blue states. Even Republicans in New Jersey brought up voter suppression laws. Has Hawaii had that issue?
No, we're very fortunate here in Hawaii that, we went to an all mail-in ballot in 2020, and we're very fortunate that it actually increased our voter turnout. But in terms of voter suppression, I believe people here in Hawaii, as being the last state in the nation, admitted into the nation, we take our responsibility seriously in terms of making sure that we vote. We've done better in the past. Last few years, it was hard to get people to make sure that they turn out to vote. But I think with going to mail-in ballot, I made it so much easier for people, a lot of working families, a lot of young people to be able to finally vote. But I feel what's going on in the country right now in terms of voter suppression laws that are being passed, it's a travesty. It goes against the very core principles of this country, and it is a travesty. And with MLK Day being tomorrow, and his family saying that we shouldn't be celebrating MLK Day until we protect voting rights, it really speaks to the direction that some people are trying to take this country to.
5:31 Eastern time here in the Eastern Seaboard, all the way out to the Pacific Islands. 5:31 Eastern, 12:31 Pacific. Is it Pacific time zone? No, 5 hours makes you.
Yeah, Hawaii time. We have our own time.
Oh, you have your own zone.
That's
right.
right.
See, you got me beat. I'm just lumped in with
Hawaii
the
Standard
rest of the
Time.
Eastern guys. We're not fancy like you. We don't have our own time zone. You know what I mean? 5:31 Eastern, 12:31 Hawaii time.
Right.
And I can tell you those 5 hours mean a hell of a lot today, because it is a whopping. I think the last time I checked, it was about 18 degrees here.
Oh my God!
I'll check again. I'll check again.
Oh.
It might be getting a little better, and we're expecting, you name it, the kitchen sink coming here today. Snow, sleet, rain, freezing rain, and then a lot of rain and wind. So we'll get to that. But we couldn't be further apart, but we also couldn't be more together. And I think you're going to see that as the program progresses. Wherever you might be on Facebook, please come on over to our home group Facebook page. That other side of information, it's right on your screen, including the phone number. It's right on your screen, and that is where I can say hello to you. I can welcome you. I can take your questions, take your comments right there. Now, if you are watching on any of the 100 different places that we have shared the program, please feel free to stay right there, support that group, enjoy, listen in the background as you're getting ready for your Monday, or if you're just staring at the handsomeness on your screen, please feel free to do that as well. But if you want to be part of the program, the thing that gets confusing, and I've been accused a bit of ignoring comments and so on that come up on the program. If you're commenting on the program on other groups other than the home group, I don't see it. So I can understand why you might think, well, I'm going to disagree with him, so no wonder he ignored me. I don't see a comment. If you want to comment, ask your questions, again, yell, scream, show suggestions, tell me you agree, tell me you disagree, whatever it might be. Our home group Facebook page is right there on the screen, that other side of information. To our sisters and brothers and friends and family at hot101.net, hot101.net, the name is the web address. Your Apple App Store if you have an Apple device, Google Play Store if you have an Android device. If you have any other type of device, the TuneIn radio app, and you can tell Alexa to play Hot 101.net. And of course, TCP from Lancaster, proud to be part of both of these families, our show family, the 101 family, and the TCP family. Sergio, among the progressive, what seemed to be tradition, it's kind of interesting. We think of progressivism as new. It really isn't. It's the history of the Democratic Party. Progressivism is the history of the Democratic Party. A progressive, no pun intended, tax system. It was Teddy Roosevelt that created the first national park. And he also began a discussion on a national healthcare system. Teddy Roosevelt did that. we all know about the New Deal, at least we should. We educate about the New Deal every week here on this program. Truman and Social Security and the Great Society and the Moonshot and the Peace Corps and solar panels on the White House. This is who we are. So why do you think, and perhaps I'm asking you the same question that I just did a couple minutes ago, but why do you think in a place like Hawaii, that is a solidly blue state, is a progressive state, that a gentleman like Mr. Case, with his more corporate ideals and corporate folks that frankly he's probably responsible to, considering the donations, if this were the 50s, I'm not so sure he wouldn't be considered an Eisenhower Republican. Why is he there? How do you think he got there? What's the disconnect between the voting public and where he stands? Or did he run as a progressive and then slowly move as the donations came in?
In 2018, I want to say he went on name recognition alone. There were 5 other candidates that were running, and they were running on progressive ideals. But I feel like he came in the last minute and won. Probably won about 40% of the vote, but he came in on name recognition alone. And I think the biggest issue that I feel like we've strayed away from these progressive principles is the issue with money in politics. I mean, when your average everyday person, can't get a meeting with their legislator, but someone from the Chamber of Commerce can, someone from the corporate side can. I feel like that just really speaks to the whole issue of money in politics and just really the corporate takeover of our politics. I know you had mentioned Representative Case, but I do have to give it to our local Democratic Party. They put out a statement just this past week saying that Representative Case, on his work with the Build Back Better agenda and supporting President Biden, that his work does not represent, or his obstructionism does not represent, the democratic values and principles of the party. So I mean, and for that to come out, it's a pretty big deal against an incumbent. So I feel like people are finally listening. The more that I speak with people, when I have a chance to talk to them on the street, there's a sense of frustration that people are asking, what is Representative Case doing? From Build Back Better to our issue with our water supply here, there's a lot of issues that people are getting frustrated about. And again, I think it goes back to this whole notion of money in politics and just the corporate takeover of politics in general.
You mentioned the reactions or conversations that you've been having while campaigning. Tell me, elaborate on that. Tell me a bit more about that. Are you finding a general worry with the direction of the country? Are you finding single issue voters? Are you finding, because you're running in a primary, you are no pun intended, you are primarily, if not exclusively, speaking to Democrats at this point. Do you find a dissatisfaction with the party in general, or just with Mr. Case specifically? Do you still see folks pointing to the, I guess disconnect is probably the right word, of the court, because the national party at its highest levels is still very Clintonian and very corporate. What kind of conversations are you getting, or reactions maybe is a better word, are you having out on the trail? Is it issue? Is it, where's our country going? Is it, what the heck is wrong with our party? Or is it all of those? Tell me how your campaigning has been.
Yeah, I think it's a combination. There's some of the biggest issues that I hear from a lot of, local residents here, and then friends and family, just affordability. Especially here in Hawaii, when one of the most expensive states in the country, the median price of a house here on the island that I live on Oahu is $1 million. For a lot of young families, that's something that just sounds so out of reach, right? And for parents, with their children moving to the continent, just because it's so hard for them to be able to make it here. I mean, that's a frustration that I see all across this district. One, it's hard for them to buy a house here and to raise a family. Just between the cost of living and the cost of education, if you're going to put your kids into private school, that's a big frustration. And I think there's also this sense of people don't know what's going on sometimes in DC. They don't know, some of the actions or inactions of our representatives has the direct impact to how our quality of life here in Hawaii. So, for the ones that are more in tune with what's going on, yes, there is the sense of frustration towards our current incumbent in terms of like, what is he fighting for? Who is he fighting for? And that's one of the biggest frustrations when, you've got a family of four that are barely making it, living paycheck to paycheck, and something like the Build Back Better agenda would be a big help for them in terms of preschool, universal pre-K, and just them finding out that it may not even pass. I think that's one of the biggest frustrations with our current incumbent is, a lot of this money would have helped so many families here in Hawaii, but we're not sure if it's even going to pass because of some of the work that he was doing in Congress. But it's a lot of it is it's a big mix. When I speak with young people and I speak with our seniors, it just ranges really the gamut. But I think one of the biggest frustrations that I sense from people is it's the sense of frustration in general. For one, towards elected leaders, and just second, you work hard, working multiple jobs, and you just feel like you can't get ahead.
Is there a I keep coming back to all the same words. I guess I don't know if my brain is misfiring tonight or what. Is there a greater, given the simple geography of it? I mean, you all are about as far away from DC as you possibly could be. For you or Mr. Case or Senator Hirono or anyone to get from home to DC is an effort. It's a proper effort. Has that, I think it's no, it's more than that. I think it might be 16 hours on a plane. I think roughly.
That probably sounds right.
Yeah. I mean, it's a long time. That's a really long time to be in a tube. Do you think that the simple geography, do you think there is a greater separation from the quote unquote man on the street, so to speak, from DC to Hawaii than there would be from DC to here in PA or in Jersey or maybe even in Texas or California? Do folks, we know that our fellow Democrats who are involved in committees and working on your campaign and to be fair, working on Mr. Case's campaign, they're obviously more dialed in. But do you think the public at large in Hawaii is dialed in? And
that is, that's just kind of the nature of it sometimes too. There's this feeling of a disconnect, like you described. Sometimes what's going on in the continent feels so far away with what's going on here in Hawaii. But in essence, there's a lot that Hawaii brings to the table in terms of the national conversation. We can really be that example. In terms of climate change, in terms of really the progressive values that Hawaii's been pushing for from the very beginning of statehood. But there is that sense of disconnect that sometimes there's this feeling that, what's happening on the continent really doesn't impact me here in Hawaii, or what's going on here in Hawaii, no one's really paying attention on the continent. But I'm a firm believer in this. Is I feel a lot of the values that we have here in Hawaii, a lot of the local values, it can be really a great example for other states and for all across the country. We bring a lot to the table, but there is a little bit of a disconnect because of the distance, the geographical distance. But in terms of the progressive values that that our country is really founded on, I feel like we're going to be more closer to that.
Is there one big issue in Hawaii? If I had to light my money, it would be environment. But is there?
Yeah.
But you have an economy. You have poor. You have very, very wealthy. You have. Mr. Zuckerberg has damn near purchased himself an entire island at this point.
Yeah.
You have active volcanoes. Your state is quite literally growing. There's a new Hawaiian island being farmed right now, as you know. from volcanic activity, and it's going to continue to grow. It's actually very, from a science geek point of view, it's very exciting. And it actually, I think, serves as an illustration that our planet's alive and continues to be active. We're not just floating through space on some dead rock. Our planet is active and changing and forming. Is there one single overriding issue that you are finding as you campaign? Or again, are you being hit with everything from A to Z?
Yeah, there's just so much going on here right now. One of the biggest thing that comes to mind is our drinking water. I don't know if it's reached some of the national news over there, but with the military, they have these fuel tanks that sits right above our aquifer, and they've been leaking for some years now. But finally, that fuel is reaching some of the the water and impacting the water supply, where people are actually, when they're opening up the tap water, there's fuel that's there's chemicals that are being mixed in there. And that's a big issue right now that's in the forefront that we're fighting for, is basically holding our military accountable to make sure that they're protecting our environment, that they're being good stewards of the environment. I mean, that's one issue that's pressing right now, but I go back to the issue of affordability. When a family is staring down at $1 million home, if they want to purchase their first home, I think that's a big issue that really weighs on people's mind here.
Are you seeing the, because I think that's interesting that you said that. The way he went about it was entirely incorrect and actually caused the near Great Depression that we had, a second Republican Great Depression in 2007, 2008. We were able to manage to keep it only to a Great Recession. But one thing that George W. Bush did advocate, the way he advocated for it, was obviously entirely incorrect. He nearly crashed the entire world economy and banking system, was the fact that home ownership stimulates economy. For every dollar that a home owner puts into their home, whether it is appliances, painters, landscapers, electricians, carpenters, drywall, flooring, whatever you want to talk about, it ripples through the economy about $7 out. The home ownership is one of the great economic drivers in our country. Is home ownership, but what we find here in Pennsylvania, in Jersey, areas of the New York metropolitan area, and now cities across the country, is this gentrification of, here's these wonderful, beautiful, brand spanking new ultra modern apartment buildings. They're all for rent. Are you having a rent versus ownership crisis? Or if crisis is maybe too hyperbolic of a word, but are you having a home ownership versus gentrified rental situation happening in your state, as we are in so many metropolitan areas across the country?
Jeff, that's one of the bigger frustrations right now for people, is that if they want to buy a home, I'll take my brother as an example. If they want to buy a home, newly married, right? And, they put in an offer for a house. They put in, for instance, a house or a condo at $600,000, and they'll put in maybe $30,000 over that. But, the next day they're outbidded. One, from a lot of investors that are coming, from other countries, and then second, from investors that are coming from out of state. It's really that frustration that they can't compete with that. So I feel like that's kind of the gentrification of this community. Is just people are just being priced out when they're having to compete with out-of-state investors or foreign investors for housing that should be for local families. There's not much they can do. And yeah, unfortunately, that's I feel like that's what's happening with the state, as more people are leaving the state and more people out-of-state investors are moving in. It's shifting a little bit in terms of the demographics here in Hawaii. There's for Native Hawaiians, for the Native Hawaiian community, there's more Native Hawaiians now that live on the continent or that live outside of Hawaii than that live in Hawaii. And I think that's just very, very telling of the direction that our economy is going, and it's very telling of just really the issues that people are facing here, and it's really frustrating.
I find that the rental issue is more, again, it's a very deep issue, and it's an issue that I think is actually quite illustrative of where we are now as a country. that all of us, if we are not part of the power structure, if we are not part of the top 1%, if we do not own a corporation, we're just profit centers. We exist, we live, we breathe, ourselves divide, ourselves die for the sake of generating profit for a very, very, very tiny slice of folks. And when you look at it within the context of housing, we have some gorgeous buildings just in walking distance from here in the city of Bethlehem. They're fantastic. They're gorgeous. I wouldn't mind having one if it was big enough. But also the rents are more, sometimes significantly more than a mortgage. And even if it's not, and rarely is it less than a mortgage, that rent level is set at such a perfect spot that you can't save anything. You simply cannot save anything toward a down payment of a home. And I still, maybe I'm old fashioned because I'm a lot older than you. I'm older than everybody, but I still find that I still believe anyway that home ownership is a goal of most people. Some folks are happy to rent, and God bless them for it. That's supposed to be one of the things that the country's founded on, yeah, is choice. But I think a lot more people would gladly own if they could. Is this a problem to you again that is become prototypical or stereotypical or at least illustrative of what our economy has become?
Yeah, Jeff, I agree with you. I mean, I feel like when people are just being looked at as profit producing individuals, you know, I go back to our 2007, 2008 housing crisis, right? You know, there was a goal of letting homeowners, first-time homeowners buy a home, but when the big banks and the mortgage companies, when they were doing, was they took that whole concept of profit and just put it on steroids, and this whole concept of greed until everything bust. But you know, I just remember that time and just really, you know, so many people losing their jobs, so many people losing their homes. But you know, when you factor in, you know, I understand, you know, people need to make a profit, but when you factor in greed, I think that's where it crosses the line. And that's, I feel like that's what's happening now. It's just, you know, when I think of low-wage workers that are getting taken advantage of so that the top 1% can continue to make billions and billions of dollars during this pandemic, you know, where's the sense of justice in that? And it just goes back to this notion of greed. I mean, how much money do you really need? You know, it's, of course, businesses need to make a profit, but when you put greed into it, I mean, it's no longer just simply making a profit. It's greed just for itself. But yeah, it goes, just the more you talk about kind of the housing crisis, it just takes me back to that time in, you know, 14, 15 years ago when as you mentioned, we almost went into a depression, but gratefully it was a recession.
It was a hell of a recession.
Yeah.
It never met the textbook definition of an actual depression. But if you were a regular old Joe like me, it might as well have been. I remember the company I was working at that time, just we darn near ground to a halt. I mean, so many things just stopped, either because you know, the clients that we worked with just weren't going to do what they were going to do because it was a bad optic, or they just didn't have the money to do it, or went out of business. And it was, you know, it's a calamity, I think, that we haven't actually recovered from. I mean, we saw a greater consolidation of big banks. There were about 7, 8, 9 major financial institutions in this country. There's now 5. It's worse. Wealth inequality is worse in this country than it was for the Republican Great Depression of the 20s and 30s. The student debt crisis is now just shy of $2 trillion. But of course, the Trump tax cut was worth $8.5 trillion. One of the most profound things that Speaker Pelosi ever said. And to be quite frank, I don't know if she was the first one to say it. She just sticks out to me as having said it, and it stuck with me. A representative, by the way, that I don't think gets enough credit for her political adeptness and for being way more progressive than people give her credit for. Certainly not perfect in my world, but way more progressive and an infinitely more skilled politician than people give her credit for. But one of the most famous things that she's ever said, and it stuck with me, is you show me a budget and I will show you your priorities. What do you see as the priorities of the United States when we can have the richest 3 people in the country have as much wealth as the bottom 200 million?
I mean, when you look at the budget, right, and you look at the defense budget, look at the military spending, on wars, spending money.
Your audio is cutting in and out a tiny bit. Might reset, no problem. It's tech, it happens. We're good. We're gonna survive.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, hopefully that's better. Yeah, and I agree with her. I mean, in terms of looking at the budget, I mean, that's where our priorities are, right? But when you look at the military spending and what we're fighting for, wars and destruction, oh my God, it's astonishing. We don't question the military budget. When the Democratic Party was having problems or issues with the Build Back Better agenda, some people, more the moderate Democrats, were asking for a score from the Congressional Budget Office. But how many times do they ask for that same score when it comes to military spending? But
and the most recent military budget passed they were given a $32 billion more than they asked for, puts our the current because it passed, defense spending bill at roughly $786 billion, more than the next 12 nations combined, and about half of the federal budget. Senator Sanders, of course, tells us when you add in some of the ancillary spending that is not on the books of that budget, you're looking more at about $1.2 trillion. And considering the federal yearly budget is in the area of I think I might be using old numbers. My brain is telling me in the area anywhere from 1.6 to 2.1 trillion dollars. You're looking at 2/3 of the federal budget. And for all of the Republicans and self-identified conservatives, because there's not really any real ones, who love to spew, cry, and complain about how much of the budget Social Security takes, it's defense spending. But what I want to ask you about defense spending is, for a state that is so very heavily dependent on it, how do you, as a candidate, straddle that line between we spend way too much for this, but yet it is very important and we need to prioritize it? How do you do that?
Yeah, Jeff, I mean, as I said earlier, I mean, the military is one of the biggest industries, or probably the second largest industry here in Hawaii. And just the militarization of this island, we do have to speak to that. I mean, it has made Hawaii a target, in terms of the U.S.'s foreign policy in the Pacific and in Asia. But at the same time, we can't just give a green pass to the military. When I speak about the military, of course, I mean the military-industrial complex. I mean, they're the ones that are profiting the most from this, putting people's lives in danger, putting, in the sense of profit, the profit motive, just putting our sense of national security in danger in order to make a buck. But one of the things that I'm campaigning on is we've got to hold our military accountable. We've got to hold the military-industrial complex accountable. We just can't continue to give them a green pass just because they bring in money to Hawaii. And going back to this issue on our water supply, the military's, we're not sure if we can trust the military on this when they say they're going to decommission the fuel tanks, when they say that they're going to follow our Department of Health's order that they shut it down. But we've got to be able to speak up. Just because they bring in dollars to the state doesn't mean that they get a green pass. Doesn't mean that they get a pass to do whatever that they want. And all across this country, I feel like we've got to do that. We've got to be willing to hold the military-industrial complex for these forever wars that we've spent trillions of dollars on. Yes, I believe that we need to keep our country safe, but at the same time, we just can't give a green pass to the industrial complex and just continue to make profit off war and destruction. But yeah, it's definitely a balancing act here in Hawaii. But again, my message is we just can't continue to give them a pass on it.
Look at that, like a real professional. This man has done this before, by the way. Took us right to 6 o'clock or 1 o'clock, depending on where you are around the globe. And let's remember, because of the magic and the loyal listenership, and we appreciate every single one of you. Please remember that. To our listenership at 101.net, we have listeners in Australia, New Zealand, dotted across the Western European continent, throughout Africa, South and Central America, and Canada, and now, of course, Hawaii. And of course, and Puerto Rico, of course, too. Listenership literally around the world. It is 6:01 Eastern Time. This is the Kennedy Effect, and we are live, entering our second hour for the 16th of January. I don't know why I just lost that. I have 4 screens in front of me. When something pops, my brain, this old brain, just tends, I'm like, oh crap, something just popped up, and then I forget entirely what I'm saying. And that's why, hey, it's part of the fun. It's almost like a sport. This were a drinking game. You guys would be under the table right now. Let's take a shot every time Jeff loses his place. You guys would be out. He'd be passed out by now. Wherever you are on Facebook, please feel free to stay exactly where you are. We are proud to share our program to over 100 places now on a pretty consistent basis, actually. There was a time where we were 70 one week, 50 another week, 80 one week, and then back down pretty consistently now at 100 different places across Facebook. And to every single group, every single page, every single individual who allows us to put our program on your little corner of the internet universe, or even better, if you actually click and share it, we're very, very grateful. We do not have advertising, as George would be happy to illustrate and tell you. We don't make any money on this program. So when you share it is the only way that people really get to see it, and that our fame, I guess, if you would say, probably not the best choice of words, but that our information, our style, our program, our substance, our content gets out there. So we thank every single one of you, each and every single one of you. We could not be here if you are not there. You can come to our home group Facebook page, that other side of information, where I will see your comments and your questions. You can agree with me, disagree with me, ask a question of our guest. That's partly why he's here. We will be giving the phone number out a little bit later. You may have heard the phone ring actually during one of Sergio's answers. That was the automated phone call for my doctor's appointment. But when you forward the phone, everything comes through. Homegrown effort, kids. Homegrown effort. Hot101.net. Our name is our web address. Google Play Store for Android, Apple App Store for Apple. And tell Alexa to play hot101.net. Tune in radio app as well if you have an LG phone or a Google phone or whatever that might be. You can do that as well. You can hear us, Bluetooth us through your car speakers, through a smart headphone, smart speaker, desktop, laptop, tablet, phone, you name it. There is no shortage of ways, and every single one of them very, very worthwhile to listen to hop101.net. And of course, TCP. You will see our program on their Roku channel later this week, and their morning show returns tomorrow morning. Our very, very loyal listener, man who's probably grown the group more than anyone else and grown the footprint of the show more than anyone else, and our regular caller, Randall. Welcome to the program. You are on the air, and please ask your question of Sergio.
I will, Jeff. Yeah, I got this 6-year-old flip phone, and it's going on the audio, and that's why when I call in, you hear all this hissing and stuff. But anyway, Sergio, and that's, I'm trying to pronounce this right, Alcubilla.
Yeah, it sounds good, Randall. Yeah, sounds really good. Thank you.
Okay.
We're
I got a really good friend I graduated from college with, Warren Wilson College down outside Asheville, North Carolina, in the Blue Ridge Mountains. And he's a native Hawaiian because he was born there. And I've been trying to get him to get into this program because he's a progressive, and I have no idea. Obviously there must be more than one U.S. House member in Hawaii if you're in just the first district. Number one, how many U.S. representatives does Hawaii have by population?
Randall, so we have 2 for Congress, and we have 2 in the Senate, of course. So we have the 1st Congressional District, which represents mostly urban Honolulu. And then we've got the 2nd Congressional District, which represents the neighbor islands and the more rural part, rural Oahu. But and that's being, right now our representative there is Representative Kaikahele, who is also Native Hawaiian. But we've only got 2.
Oh, okay, cool. Number 2, I just want to say, thank goodness there is a progressive Democrat running in this spring primary for your district. And I'm glad, Sergio, that you are doing that. Everything I've listened to tonight, I am very, very impressed with you, young man. And Jeff can go, he's an old man. Hey, I'm 69 here in PA. I'm the old man.
Sergio, let me ask you, I'll let Randall hang on because I owe him a lot. He's actually really done, I don't just say that because it sounds cool. He's done so much to help grow the program. I'll leave Randall on the line, but let me ask you a question built on what Randall just said. How important is it, do you believe, for folks of your age or folks that are not 50, 60, 70 and not with big pockets to step up and say, the best way for me to affect change is to get inside the process and not just hurl rocks at it from outside, but get in it? How important do you think that is?
And Randall, I appreciate you being on the line, but for me, I think it's very important. I mean, it's this sense of answering the call to serve. If you feel like our government is mostly, people that are in there are, representing the corporate interest, I feel like it's a sense of civic responsibility that if you feel like you're qualified, you feel like you can do a better job. I feel like there's a sense of civic responsibility that you've got to be willing to step up. Think about your community, think about your neighbors, your family. If you feel like you can do a better job, step up. Put your name in the plate. That's really put your name in the hat. I mean, that's really what our democracy is all about. It doesn't have to belong to the rich. It doesn't have to belong to the privileged. Answer the call to serve. I think that's. I see your posters in the back, Jeff, and it's just one of those things with President Kennedy. Just this sense of hope. Asking people, what can you do to help this country? What can you do to help make this country better? And it's a call to service. It's a call to action. And it's important that more young people have that sense of responsibility to help make this country better, because that's the only way that we can make this country better.
But also on top of that, not just, we all know that, ask not what your country can do for you. The part of that quote that I think most people miss, it's not explicitly spoken by President Kennedy, but I think it's in the essence of what he's trying to say. I think it's the meaning of what he's trying to say. Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And when we all do for our country does do for us. When we all become part of the process, we understand how it works, we improve it, we work on it, then our country can and does give back to us. I think one of the great conundrums about where we find ourselves as a country and as a populace, and folks, please forgive me for the sniffling and the swallowing or whatnot. We're just a tiny bit congested today, so I'm struggling for air. I think humans generally are not selfish. I think we're kind of by nature not selfish in the same way that we by nature are non-confrontational. And I think that sometimes even the most progressive among us will walk into the voting booth with a sense of not wanting to be selfish. It's hard to advocate for this program because it really deeply affects me and would help me. And I don't know about everybody else, but it would really help me. And I think, again, just to be a little repetitive, generally as a nature, as an essence, we aren't that way as human beings. We're innately selfish. But it seems to me, Sergio, that as a progressive, and as so many of the policies that we talk about, especially kitchen table economic issues, come down to the 1% and the 99%. How can something be selfish? How can it be self-serving when it benefits 99% of the population? I mean, it seems to me that it can't be. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Jeff. You know, I am an optimist. I mean, I see the good in people first, and I completely agree with you that it's not selfish for people to think about how this specific agenda or this specific bill can help them and their families. But at the same time, I think what is selfish is when 1% controls kind of the message or the messaging to the 99%. And it's just this sense of, or this notion that, you shouldn't be asking for help, or you shouldn't, why don't you pick yourself up from the bootstraps and make yourself a success. And I don't think there's anything selfish when people go into the voting booth and they look at the issues and they look for candidates that represents their self-interest. I think that's part of the process. I think what's happening now is just sometimes people they've lost a sense of hope. When corporate interests have dominated, a lot of our elected leaders and some of their policies, and people just feel like, oh, what's the point or what's the use? But I think that's where it really goes back to their responsibility. It's the people that's going to hold our government leaders accountable, and that's the only way you can do that is through the vote, and that's why it's very important.
Randall, I'll give you another shot if you have another question.
Yeah, I got another question for Sergio.
You should ask him a question. I'm sitting here every damn week. He's not here every week. You should ask him a question. I'm here all the damn time.
Yeah, I want to hear a question to you, Jeff, too, but that's a side issue. Anyway, Sergio, I explained I'm 69 years old earlier, and I'll be 70 in August. And, I was really looking forward to Build Back Better America plan. That I could get glasses and hearing aids and teeth. I'm missing most of my teeth. I can barely eat food anymore because of that reason. Everybody in my family complains, get a hearing aid, Dad, get a hearing aid, husband, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, that was one of the first things that Joe Mancini took out.
Joe Manchin.
Demanded to be taken out.
Senator Manchin of West Virginia, right.
And hey, I can understand all Republicans being corporate slugs. But to have so many, whether in the House or the U.S. Senate, so many Democratic corporate slugs that just want to suck us dry to fill their pocketbooks up, to pass on wealth to their families, whatever, just pisses the F out of me.
Easy. It's a family show.
What?
It's a family show.
Well, no, Jeff, you know I don't curse. You know that.
So what's the question? Let me ask because we want the guests to answer. So what's the question?
The question is, I've been working since 25 years old as a elected Democratic, or when I moved and appointed before I was elected again, in other municipalities here in PA. I've been working from college as a liberal. And in the late 90s, I realized I was a progressive. And it just pisses me off, Sergio, that most of my generation now is just conservative. How do we get through to yeah, we're dying, and that's probably a good thing, because I've got 3 millennium daughters and son-in-laws and grandchildren that are progressive. So maybe it's a good thing we're all dying off, you know? But how can we get through to my generation that doesn't understand what progressive Democratic policies can do for them?
Great question. Randall, I'm going to say goodbye to you, but thank you for the great questions. And of course, you know, you're always welcome here. And thanks for interacting with us and talking to our guests. That's a great question.
Randall,
Thank you,
thank you so much.
Sergio, and thank you, Joe.
You got it, my friend.
Randall, thank you so much just for being on the show and for raising that. You know, when I hear you mentioning that you can't hear, you can't see, and you can't eat because you don't have access to those, for one of the richest countries in the world to have our seniors and to have people say that they can't do that. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's outrageous just to think about it. And then just to think that, Senator Manchin took some of those out from Build Back Better. I don't even know if he's going to support it, but it's just the real impact that politics plays in people's lives. And I had this conversation yesterday with my team. It's just, people are playing games with people's lives, and it upsets me the most. When my mom, she just turned 70 this year too, and she has the same issue. Sometimes her teeth are bothering her, and she needs to get dental work, and sometimes she skips eating meals because her teeth are bothering her. And to think that that's happening in this country, it makes me really upset. I know, Jeff, this is a family show.
No.
I mean,
we are not governed by the FCC. I just try to keep it. I try to stick to FCC rules to keep it that way. Because, I mean, hopefully someday he finds let me find the best wood in the room that we will be governed by. We'll find a terrestrial home and we will be governed by those. But in addition to all the homes that we already have. But anyway, I'm sorry, I got off on a tangent there.
No, but just to think about the games that people are playing in politics, two politicians that are holding up the whole Build Back Better agenda in the Senate, that are using the filibuster to block legislation. I mean, you're messing with people's lives. You're messing with people's livelihoods. You're messing with their quality of life. And it's not a game anymore. People may think politics is a game, but to me, it's not a game. These are real life implications, of your actions and inactions when you're in office. And it's a big responsibility. And I'm tired of people playing games with politics. I'm not here to play games. My heart is always, what can we do to make people's lives better? And I think of Randall, and I think of his struggles, and it's upsetting to think that that's still happening in this country now. And then, yes, I hope his daughters will continue to take up his work and continue to push for, the progressive agenda, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to help people, and that's what's going to help move this country forward towards progress.
And it's an interesting little civics lesson, if I might, that you are running to represent the first congressional district of Hawaii in the United States House of Representatives. But one of the wonderfully unique things is that obviously, and I happen to believe this deep in my heart, as a secondary responsibility, you do kind of represent all the people of the country. If you're going into the House and voting in a block for things that you support and that are going to profoundly affect, for the better, in my opinion, and in your opinion, or you wouldn't be running, but that are going to profoundly affect the people of your district, are going to affect the people of Pennsylvania. For Randall in Delaware County, which happens, if you're familiar with the shape of Pennsylvania, would be the lower right-hand corner along the Delaware River and Delaware Bay, or in the dead middle of Nebraska, or in the mountains of Montana, or the deserts of Arizona. You are voting for things that are, these are nationwide things, and you don't go to Washington to vote for too many pieces of legislation that affect only the people of the first district of Hawaii. You're going to vote for things that affect the entire country. And by the way, we are well on track, if we are not already, because I've actually already seen some conflicting reports. We are not the richest nation on earth anymore. That would be China, because we gave them our entire economy. But let me try to push just a tiny bit on you about Randall's question. The folks, there's a measurable percentage of Republicans we will never, ever reach. They've gone too far off the edge now. You know, the grass is blue and the sky is green, and that's just the end of it because Tucker Carlson said so, damn it. But independents, and too many members of our own Democratic Party, how do we convince them or reconvince them that it is, in fact, progressive policies that are best for everyone, all of us, rich and poor, to be honest? The New Deal created some of the largest mega corporations that have ever been seen on the face of the earth, and some of the richest families and people. Progressive policies work for everybody. How do we convince those people?
Yeah, great question, Jeff. I mean, I do have to give it to the right. They've done a good job of messaging and you know, reaching people where they are and talking to people in terms of the issues. And I feel like we do need to do a better job in terms of the Democratic Party, and I want to call it grassroots organizing, letting people know how this type of legislation is going to impact them. You know, how this can help make their lives better. But you know, just looking back at history, you know, they sold us on this whole notion of trickle-down economics, that if we help the top, you know, 1%, then all the benefits is going to come down to the rest of us. And here we are, and it's shown that it doesn't work. You know, it's time that we do something else different, and it's time that we go back. And as you mentioned, Jeff, going back to the principles of this country, going back to that time, you know, when people look at the Eisenhower years and when they look at the Roosevelt years, you know, they look at those times when there was American prosperity, right? But it's really the progressive principles that drove that. And all this time since then, you know, we've been sold kind of this lie that, you know, if we support the top 1%, then everything else is going to be beneficial to us. And, you know, I'm here to tell people, no, that doesn't work. I don't believe in trickle-down economics, and I don't think it ever will work. And it's time for us to go back to our roots.
But I'm so glad you said one of my favorite words: history. History. Trickle-down economics has, quite literally, whatever word you want to give it, never worked in the history of the entire recorded history of humanity on this planet. Has never worked. There are many theories and many contributing factors to the fall of the Roman Empire. An empire that large is obviously going to have many complex issues that surround it. But one of the greatest accelerants of the fall of the Roman Empire was when the senators, the rich, decided, why are we paying for all this? Let the people pay for it. And the people didn't have the money to pay for it because the rich had all the money. And that's exactly what we're seeing now. And it's this cycle that you're correct, that we've been sold that if you just give it to the rich, they'll spread it out. They never spread it out. They kept it. It's a psychopathy. It is not different than the strange old dude on the corner whose house is filled with newspapers. Money, there's never enough money. I beg you to go, all of you, every single one of you listening, to go to YouTube and find Senator Ted Kennedy's speech from the 90s about the minimum wage. How much does the other side want? When is enough enough? When does the greed stop? Mr. Musk and Mr. Bezos are worth roughly $200 billion each. Apple is the first $3 trillion corporation in the history of the planet. Mr. Musk and Mr. Bezos individually are worth more than the individual gross domestic products of 2/3 of all the nations on the planet. The lowest of which is Haiti. Their gross domestic product is roughly about $1.7 billion, and they're worth over 200. This is a concentration of wealth that has never been seen in the history of this planet, and it is fundamentally immoral. And whatever faith you may call your own, I happen to call my faith Christianity, but whatever faith you call your own, nowhere in any sacred text is this level of depravity and wealth inequality labeled as a good thing. In fact, it is an anathema to every faith on earth, every single one of them. My hope for next week's program is to have a series of clergy folks here where we're going to talk about the difference between faith, between Christianity specifically, and hopefully not too narrowly for my audience, but difference between Christianity and evangelicalism, because they're two different things. They're two different things. I did not give you a chance, Sergio, to give us the standard elevator speech. What are the big three? What are your big three, big five policy points that you're running on? We understand there's accountability. It's what makes you different from Mr. Case. You come from a completely different background. You will clearly vote differently than he. You will advocate differently than he. I can only assume your local offices will actually have people in them. You can be visited. People will know where to find you and contact you and speak to you. I find that to be a very, very basic keystone tenet of progressives that run for office, is that you will know where my offices are. You will be able to find me. You can call me. I will always be on social media. You can contact me. You will know what I'm doing. But what are the big, when I get a piece of literature from you, what are the big bullet points that are on it? What are the big things that are important to you?
Thanks, Jeff. I mean, it boils down to being a voice for working families. I know where I come from. I know my background. People ask me, one of the biggest things I think is people, there's a sense of dismay, but this sense of distrust in government when people say, how can we be sure that we can trust you? And I tell people, I just don't talk the talk, but I walk the walk. A lot of times when politicians run, they'll say all the things that you want to hear, but at the end of the day, are they going to walk the walk? And for me, I've walked the walk. It's not just talk. These aren't just talking points. These are things that I've lived with. These are things that I've worked on. These are things that I've done. But one of the biggest things that I want to tell people is I'm not a career politician. I'm not here to play games. I'm not here to just take up space in the office. I'm not here to accumulate years so I can collect a pension. I'm here to actually do something. I'm actually here. I'm putting my name, in the ring to do something. I'm here to do something for our families, to do something for those that are struggling, to do something for our planet. And I'm not just going to sit there and play games and play politics as usual. I mean, I'm here to make a difference, and I'm going into Congress with that sense, with that notion, and with that motivation that, you know, we can make this country better if we really work on it. If we really want to, we can make this country better, you know, with real progressive principles, with real values that really speaks to the struggles of everyday working people.
6:30 East. This man's a pro. Let me just tell you. I think we found the guest, hopefully not the replacement host of this program. That would make me very sad. But maybe the guest host. It might make you all very, very happy. Make me kind of sad because he got us right. The man is brilliant. Took us right again. Spot on. 6:30 Eastern time. He has ended at the bottom and top of every hour so far in this program. It's, you know what? I don't even do that. I don't do that. And I'm supposed to be the bloody professional here, aren't I? And I still don't do it. Took us, man, right on the mark, like a pro. 6:31 Eastern time here in the United States. Kennedy Effect live for the 16th of January, 2022. I did actually in my brain almost say 2021. My brain was going 2021. I have no idea why that was happening. I thought we had passed that by now. But anyway, we are here and live for the 16th of January. We will be with you live again next week. That's the plan, barring anything unforeseen. Hot101.net is the web address. Apple App Store, Google Play Store, TuneIn, Radio app, and tell Alexa to play hot101.net. TCP from Lancaster on Roku, Facebook, and WTCP Radio. And wherever you might be on Facebook, please come on over to that other side of information. Been a very, very quiet chat tonight. A very quiet chat. A good number of folks have been in it, and we appreciate every single one of you. But been quiet. It's been kind of quiet. But we will still hear from you. Just because there hasn't been a lot of comments or questions in there does not mean that we do not welcome them. We welcome your comments and questions. You can call us you can call us. Let me get to that. Your comments and questions you can put in the chat anytime. This is your program. As I so often say, we love NPR. I listen to NPR a lot, but it's a little lecture-y. This is not a lecture. We want to hear from you. Randall called, as he always does, loyal and faithful and always there for us. But if you want to call and be heard, please do so. 267-227-9189 is our phone number. 267-227-9189. 267-227-9189. Let me allow you to get what time do you need to leave us? Which is something I don't normally ask straight on the air, but I am confused by your note. When do you need to get going? Anytime?
Look, I'm fine. I'd love to just answer questions, and it's really been a pleasure on the show. And if there's any questions, I'd
I told you you would have fun.
It's been a lot of fun. You've been such a great host, and your listeners are great. So, yeah.
Let me drill down a little bit on what I asked you before our break there at the bottom of our reset there at the bottom of the hour. See, I told you to stick to the FCC. I don't swear too much. I have sworn before. I don't make a habit of it if I can help it. But we do reset at the top and bottom of every hour. But that said, let me drill down a little bit on what I asked you right before the reset there. Give me some policy planks that you maybe a little bit more on the wonky technical bit side. Give me some policy planks that you, Sergio, say, yeah, folks, that's me. I believe in this. We mentioned Build Back Better. You have mentioned the myth that is trickle down. I'm assuming, but I want you to answer that your method for fixing that is to reset the tax system to a pre-Reagan era. There is the very under and almost never spoken of tariff system that we used to have in this country that Mr. Reagan dismantled, the tariff and import tax system that fully funded the federal government up till around 1919, that was dismantled by the Reagan administration, allowing us to become an import nation instead of an export nation. And I think you have a unique view on that in Hawaii because you do import so much. Is it what are those things? Don't let me, I shouldn't fill them in for you. You obviously have your own brain. I shouldn't be filling in your list for you, but what are those things? Is it taxes? Is it environment? Is it, go down, tick off the list for us. What are the more policy driven things that are in your portfolio that you're running on?
Thanks, Jeff. No, and my guiding framework or the principles that I always look at is what can we do to make people's lives better? What can we do to protect our planet? One of the first things I want to do, someone had asked me before, what's the first thing that you're going to do when you get into Congress or when you get into office? And my answer, I had to
Isn't
give
that a
some
crazy
thought.
question? Because you're still only going to be 1 out of 435.
Right.
I do think it's odd when folks say, "How are you going to fix things when you get there?" Well, I'm one of. So here, I know I cut you off, and I apologize, but it is funny.
No.
It's funny how many
Yeah.
people say that you're going to fix everything when you get there. Well, I'm sure as hell going to try, but I'm still only one. I'm really only one of 535 if we really think about it, and one of 3 branches.
Yes. No,
It's a
I mean, the
civics
first
lesson.
thing I would, yeah, I mean, the first thing I would say is make sure the staff have a living wage. I get the chance to hire a staff, and I want to make sure that our staff, that my staff has enough to live in DC or to live wherever they are. And so I want to make sure, one is just to make sure that they have a living wage. I'm going to fight for the minimum wage. I think it's important that we raise the minimum wage to at least $15 an hour. I know there's a lot of nuances to it, but that's one of the things that I want to put. If we can't do it here in Hawaii with our Democratic legislature and our Democratic governor, if we can't even get it $12 an hour, at least at the federal level, I'm going to push for $15 an hour. That's one of the things I'm going to push for. Second is just Medicare for all. This whole issue of us being now, as you said it, Jeff, not the richest country in the world anymore, but as one of the richest countries in the world, for us to still struggle, with the issue with health insurance, I think it just really speaks to this whole issue of money in politics.
Can I stop you? Can I stop
Go
you
ahead.
there for 1 sec? Because I want to ask you this question. We do have a caller. Caller, give me just a second. Are you able to explain to people in a way that they understand? Which makes it sound like the people that you're talking to are stupid. I don't mean it that way at all. But I think we as Americans, sometimes we are so centric. We are so centered on ourselves. We travel internationally less than nearly any other country on earth. We don't experience other places. We don't even travel within our own country as much as other countries' populations do. When you are making the case to folks about student debt, Medicare for all, universal free education for that matter, which we used to have in this country, there was no student debt before Reagan. There was no homeless problem before Reagan. Are you able to look people in the face and have them believe you that we're the only nation on earth that does what we do to our people? We're the only nation on earth that has made its own people profitable.
Jeff, and I think that's a message that's not being put out there as much, or that's not, and I go back to kind of the messaging of the right is they've done a good job of messaging. And it's one of those things, and I believe in plain language and speaking plainly to people. As an attorney, especially at legal aid, when you take these very, difficult concepts and ideas, and you've got to boil it down into a language that people can understand. How does this impact you? What can you do? I mean, there's no use in throwing laws and all these legalese language to people if they're not ever going to use it, if they're not going to understand it. And I'm going to take that same approach here. And when I go campaigning, it's just I speak with people plainly. If you're struggling with health insurance, if you're struggling with student loan debt, if you're struggling with the minimum wage and making sure that your rights at work are being protected, these are things that I'm going to fight for. These are things that I'm going to do to make your life easier. These are things that we need to push for to make people's lives easier. And we do need to do a better job in terms of letting people know that trickle-down economics doesn't work, that the current system doesn't work, that the current system continues to look at them as simply profit centers. But we've got to do a better job at that. And my campaign, I'm going to continue to focus on that in terms of making sure that we speak plainly to people and explaining it plainly to people.
Our caller is on the air. It is Christopher, I'm almost certain. Chris has been a member of our roundtable and is a member of the Kennedy Effect family. Chris, welcome home, welcome back. Thank you for ringing in and being part of the program. And let it go, kiddo. Give us your questions and comments and so on. It's all yours.
So thank you, Jeff, for having me out there. Hi, everybody out here in Radio Land. And I have a question for Sergio. And thank you for coming from Hawaii here. This week we were talking, we have a Facebook group called That Other Side of Information. You'll see me commenting a lot on there, and Jeff posts a lot of great content. Sorry, gotta put a plug in for that. we were having this conversation about, and one of the things we were talking about was the Voting Rights Act this week. And one of the big things that I have pushed for always is ranked choice voting. And so I was doing, while we were on the phone, I just like a little bit of research. Biden won the district by over 29%. And you have, Rep. Case is a blue dog. He caucuses a blue dog. Even in the swing state of Pennsylvania, there is 0 members of our delegation part of the blue dog. 0. No Democrat caucuses with the blue dog. And I see you have ranked choice voting for, I believe, presidential, correct? And I'm wondering, like, when you see somebody who doesn't really represent a majority, supermajority minority district and such, I wonder what your thoughts are on, like, is the system, when you have something like, if you just get through the crowded Democratic primary with a lot of corporate money, then you go on to the general and you got it. And that kind of makes the system to me rigged. And I wonder, like, living in that district and seeing that and running, what your kind of viewpoint is on that.
Christopher, thanks for the question and thanks for joining the show. So let me just make sure I got your question right. It's kind of this whole issue with with people just running in the primary and really not having to campaign in the general. Did I get that right? Yeah, in our current system, yeah.
And also not representing people when they win through corporate money in a primary, and then get in there with kind of two-folded.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to money in politics. I mean, I want to support the For the People Act, which would go a long way towards remedying some of these issues. But especially here in Hawaii, where we're dominated by it's a one-party state, and I mean, in a perfect world, when everyone is a Democrat, there should be no issue with passing progressive legislation. But that's really not that's not the reality here. So a lot of times people are just really campaigning for the primary, and then in the general, they think it's basically a shoo-in. But I think it is an issue when when a candidate, and for me as a first-time candidate, I know kind of the challenges that people face when they want to enter politics and they want to do something to make their community better. Yeah, I don't have the big money that our current incumbent has, and that's kind of one of the driving forces, right? But at the end of the day, it's not money that's going to win elections. It's going to be people that vote. It's going to be people that you've spoken with, people that you've reached out to make sure that they support you. But ranked choice is one of those things that what can we do to make our democracy and our voting process here better. Here in Hawaii, we are fortunate that our voting rights is not under attack as some of the other states and some of the other residents that they're facing on the continent. But that's something that I think our state is still looking into. But I think for me, the biggest issue right now is just the whole point of money in politics and how incumbents that are backed by corporate interests, it's so easy for them to win re-election. And it's hard for them to be kept accountable. And it's only when people vote that they can be kept accountable.
I'm sure Chris has a second question, and he is absolutely allowed to ask it. I want to ask you a question before he gets to that and kind of use Christopher as an example, if you will allow. Chris is a veteran. He's a medic. Does a lot of work with and for vets. We've talked already about how important and how large a part of life the military is to Hawaii. We know that every single day there are veterans that are committing suicide. There are the largest percentage of folks who are unsheltered are vets. As much as we need to see reform in the defense budget, where are you? What can you tell us about how you feel about the treatment of veterans and how we can do better, and how, maybe even, how that manifests itself in your district, again, with so many veterans and so many people tied to the military in Hawaii? What can you tell us about that?
I feel like that's where we need to be spending most of our defense budget on, is making sure that our veterans, those that, that risk their lives, making sure that they're being taken care of. I just feel like the whole military industrial complex is taking advantage of people in a way, that, people are coming back hurt. People are coming back from their deployment overseas. They're coming back hurt, not just physically or externally, but also internally. And this type of forever wars and this type of foreign policy, I mean, it's doing a lot of damage. I come from a military family. My dad was in the military. My grandfather was in the military. So I have a lot of utmost respect for, our military members, but, we've got to do them right. In terms of our policy, the defense budget, the priority should be in making sure that veterans are being supported and they get the help that they need. It's just frustrating for me to see, another veteran with a sign, staying at a homeless encampment. I think that's a travesty, and I think that's a shame that what we're doing, to people that risk their lives. And, another thing I just wanted to add is sometimes I feel like the military, they target people. It's part of the system. There is an honor serving, but also at the same time, part of the system, is if you look at the military as a way to get insurance, as a way to get housing, as a way to get a job. What can we do so people don't have to look at the military? People don't have to look at war and destruction as a way for them to be able to get their needs met. I just think of a lot of my classmates and why they entered the military, and why they wanted to enter the military in the first place. It's just they thought it was a good job, or they thought that it provided the benefits that they needed. But we've got to do our veterans better. At the end of the day, that's what, if I could have a magic pen, I'd allocate most of the defense budget to that.
I think it's an interesting point that you make, because as noble and selfless and the true definition of patriotic as serving the military can be, it has become, sadly, a desperation for so many of our population, especially poor whites in the South, folks of color who feel they have no other avenue to do better for their lives than to give years and years and years of military service. Now, again, as you said, that service is exceptionally noble, and it is very selfless. And I think at its height, only about 0.3% of the population is serving at any given time. So we're talking about a dramatic minority of folks. There are also folks who join the military because it might be a family history, or because they really do want to make a career of it. And God bless them for it. That's what this society is based on, is supposed to be choice. But I do find it increasingly that there is a section of our society that sees it as the only way out. That used to be that way out used to be education. It used to be an apprenticeship. It used to be a union job. It used to be any number or any combination of any of that, to be honest. And now it's, for a good segment of our society, it's military or nothing. And that's not it goes to what FDR said. How can a person truly be free when they are not free from want, free from the thought of starvation, free not having a job, no roof over their head, and so on and so on. But anyway, I just went off on that. Chris, go ahead, take it over again. If you have additional questions or something that you want to follow up on, go ahead.
Sure. I want to say thank you for your answer on the veterans issue. I think that is really amazing. I look at the DoD will say things like, with our combat associated pensions, well, we don't have the money. And I look at the budget. I'm like, what are you talking about? You got $33 billion just for whatever you want, like extra money, which you didn't even request. It's really kind of pathetic when you think about it. But I guess my question is, and this will be my final question, is if there's like 2 or 3 things from your viewpoint, I think, we have 50 states, and there has to be a 50-state strategy at least. And what do you find in organizing communities out where you are in Hawaii? What are like the top 2 or 3 things that you would want to give our audience, like skills or tactics or approaches that you think are most helpful? Or running for office, however you want to look at it, the 2, ways, 2 or 3 things that you think are greatest.
I see. Yeah, no, thanks, Chris. And I appreciate you being on the show. And as Jeff mentioned, I know you do a lot of work with veterans, and I think you're a veteran yourself. So thank you for all the work that you've done and your service. But in terms of tactics, in terms of just speaking to everyday people, this campaign, I mean, I've been doing it before I decided to run for office. It's just being in the community. It's just finding ways to serve, finding ways to give back and make your community better. Whether that's working for a nonprofit, whether that's working at your local food bank, is what can you actually do, with your time to give back a little bit. But in terms of, politics and campaigning, one of the things I enjoy the most is just going out and just speaking with people. Of course, now with COVID numbers up, we've got to be a little bit more careful, but just speaking to people and letting them know that they do have choices and, in this country, that, with their vote, that they can choose certain policies and certain agendas that's beneficial for them. But one of the advantages initially people said it was a disadvantage is that I've never run for office before, that, I'm not a career politician, but to me, I think that's an advantage. And this is my call out to your listeners is, whether you're a teacher, whether you work at a nonprofit or whether you're a nurse or a doctor, if you feel like you have something to give in terms of your politics, in terms of your viewpoint, and share it with the rest of the world. Run for office, serve on a board, serve on a commission. It's important that your viewpoint and your voices are being heard. It's not enough for us just to talk about it and complain to our family. Oh, I wish our country did this, or I wish this person would stop doing that. Stand up and do it. I think it's a scary leap. For me, it was. I didn't, consider myself as a career politician, and it's, of course, sometimes it's a little bit scary, but to put yourself out there for people to look at you and make judgment on you without even knowing who you are. But it goes back to the sense of civic responsibility. We do have a sense of responsibility to make this country better, and the way we can do that is taking an active role in our local politics, in our local community. So for all your listeners, Jeff, I really encourage you to do that and to look into what can you do to help make your community better.
I am also, among the many, many hats that I wear, the chief strategist for Our Revolution, Pennsylvania. And we have dedicated ourselves right up to the Pennsylvania primary to electing good progressive folks, good meaning folks, perhaps even if they don't consider themselves progressive, but just good, decent human beings who care about the process, care about the party, care about our Commonwealth, care about our country. Get them elected to positions inside the Democratic Party. Even though it might be the same answer, how important do you see that as well? Maybe maybe a certain individual's personality doesn't lend itself to running for public office in the way that you are, but you can become a precinct committee person. You can become a county chair, a state chair. You can run for your state Democratic committee. You could even run for the Democratic National Committee. How important do you think that is?
Jeff, I think it's critical. And as you mentioned, not everyone, wants to run for office, but there's so many other things that you can do. work on a campaign team. You bring a lot of strengths to the table, and what your strengths are, and different campaigns can help you. You can help different campaigns, with your skill sets. Whether it's the Democratic Party or, ask what you can do to go volunteer or to go work with with the local campaign in your community. There's someone that's running on values and a platform that you believe in, because they could definitely use the help. I know our campaign can definitely use the help. Jeff, I had mentioned that my campaign manager was going to join us, but it's Sunday and she's still working, so she's got to do something else. But she's wearing many hats. But
it's always the staff. Yeah, I mean the staff.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, you mean like working a full-time job or working campaign stuff today, or both?
Oh, campaign stuff. And it's just she's wearing many hats as well. But it's going to take all of us, take all of our collective effort, bring whatever talents and abilities you have. If you're going up against a big machine, you're going against big money, it's going to take all of us.
267-227-9189 is the phone number. The line is clear. We thank Randall and Christopher for being our callers so far this evening. 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189. Voting rights has been a big issue this week. At the risk of maybe asking way too general a question, if I just lay that in front of you to say voting rights, tell me everything. What are you thinking? What are you thinking of the current debate? Do you even think that it's 2022? Should the United States be beyond this debate? Why is the Voting Rights Act even something that needs to be renewed? These are natural, inalienable rights to me. What are we talking about here? Just talk to me about voting rights in general, or what you think of what's happening in DC, or not happening in DC for that matter.
Jeff, I as an immigrant to this country, that became a naturalized citizen. I take the right to vote as, I don't take it lightly, and I don't take it as a, something you take for granted. But, when there's a section of our politics that's seeking to disenfranchise so many people, it just, gosh, we are in 2022, and this is still something that we've got to talk about. Again, as I mentioned, we're thinking, celebrating MLK Day tomorrow, right? But his family has even said, no, they're not, they've asked us not to celebrate MLK Day until this whole voting rights issue gets resolved. And my gosh, this is I feel like it's a stain on our democracy that we're still having to need this conversation in 2022. But it's important that we protect people's rights, right to vote. And in states that, they're passing laws to make it harder, who is it really for? At the end of the day, you've got to ask what's really going on here. And it just, I don't know, it just still baffles my mind that we're still having this conversation around voting rights.
Is it even more dumbfounding to you that there are two members of the United States Senate who, at least in name, consider themselves members of the Democratic Party, and yet still don't see the urgency of this? Now, supposedly, publicly, they both support the two pieces of legislation, but won't do anything necessary to pass them. These are supposedly members of our own party. If we as a Democratic Party can't get this right, what on earth can we get right?
Exactly, Jeff. And I've heard this notion before that, no, just any old blue won't do. We've got to hold people that that call themselves as a Democrat, that call themselves part of the Democratic Party. We've got to hold them accountable to democratic principles. Who are you really fighting for at the end of the day? With these two senators that are holding these things up, who are you? And people need to ask those questions. Who are you fighting for? Who are you representing? And it is frustrating. It is super frustrating for people, for two people or two senators that are stopping kind of the will of the majority on this one. It is frustrating.
And will of the majority by a long way. I mean, you are not a constitutional scholar, nor do you claim to be. I am not a constitutional scholar. I do not claim to be. But you have been willing to say the word history through our program and our chat tonight. What are we? History will not look kind upon this. I mean, we're looking at I have talked on this program, and I have talked to friends, neighbors, and in the other political work that I do. We're in a 3-year window here for the survival of this democracy, for the survival of the American experiment. The founders did not build minority rule into the Constitution. In fact, they did not even build minority protections into the Constitution. The House operates under its own rules that the House passes for the House, the Senate for the Senate. The filibuster is a rule, not a constitutionally outlined piece of law, as it were, or foundational law. The country was meant to be ruled by the majority. The number of folks who support Build Back Better are in the 70 percentile range. The number of NRA members that support expanded background checks is near 90%. The will of the American people after Sandy Hook to do something about assault rifles was above 90%. You can't get 90% of Americans nowadays to agree that grass is green. Yet the minority is dictating life in this country. 34 Republican U.S. senators only represent about 24 million people. There's 330 million people in the country. I'm not talking about dismantling the Constitution or reapportioning senators, but something's missing here. That was what the Great Compromise was. Do we have a legislative chamber built on strictly populational proportionment, or does every state get 2? The Great Compromise gave us both. How can the Senate be the world's most deliberative body when it doesn't deliberate anything? Tell me your thoughts on the state of, I don't want to say the state of everything, that's kind of nuts, but the state of our democracy, the state of the functionality of our government. Has our government and our form of government, our globally unique form of government, has it reached its end? Is it that simple? Or is it just bought, paid for, purchased, and being ground to a halt?
And Jeff, as an optimist, I believe really in this country and what we're trying to do in terms of the social experiment that we call the United States of America. But one of the biggest things I think that's throwing a wrench into the system is the filibuster. It's time to end the filibuster. I feel like that's being used by the minority to basically dictate to the majority the agenda, and I think it's being abused really by the losing party. And I'm going to say it for both sides. It's one of those things that I think it's a bane to our democracy, and it's time that we get rid of it. And going back to history again, I look at the time of Reconstruction. I look at the time of the Jim Crow laws. I mean, those are things that I look back at them as kind of a part of our checkered past. But this is the time that we can move forward and get it right. And I feel like if we continue to go the path that we're going, we're going to take another step back. That's going to push us back another couple of years in terms of the vision for this country. But let's start with ending the filibuster. I feel like that's been misused and abused for so long now that we can't even get legislation that the majority of people in this country want. Let's start
We
with
can't
that.
even get it debated, let alone passed. We're not even debating legislation. I think that's what most Americans might not get, is it not just that this piece of legislation did not pass the Senate, it was never even brought up. It's not going through committee. It's not being debated on the floor. Nothing is happening in the Senate because the minority is controlling what's happening. Where else in American society does the minority of people control the agenda? I can't think of one off the top of my head.
I would say maybe in the boardroom.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah.
When you've got the majority of workers, and you've got these, super rich CEOs making the decisions. I was just thinking about this actually the other day, and sorry to shift, but it's, what if we had more worker-owned companies, for them to have a better share in the profits? I think that's something that we've got to look into, and as a model. I mean, otherwise it's just things are going to continue where you've got your CEO making billions of dollars while your average low-wage worker is barely getting by. But that's the only other example I could think of that you asked me. It popped into my mind. So sorry to interrupt there.
The Hawaiian Islands were subject to a tsunami warning yesterday because there was a major underground, or undersea, I should say, volcanic eruption. It was a major eruption. There were tsunami warnings for the entire western coastline of the United States, for Alaska, well, obviously into Canada too, but for the entire Pacific coastline from Alaska down into Mexico, and obviously the Hawaiian Islands were part of that. When something like that happens, does it help to focus people's attention on global climate change? A volcanic eruption is obviously not part of climate change. It is a natural event. Our planet is alive. It is active. The plates are moving. There are volcanoes. There are canyons. There are, rivers of water are carving rock and changing the landscape all the time. Mountains continue to grow, believe it or not. Everest actually adds height pretty much every year. But it would seem to me that an event like this would be something that would focus people's attention on sea level rise, because you are an island nation. And even if a tsunami was coming, you're going to get flooded, but sea level rise contributes to this if your beaches are disappearing and if the highest mountain isn't as far away from the ocean as it used to be. And of course, you have active volcanoes on Hawaii as well. So does an event like that tend to focus people's, I realize it was only yesterday, so you probably haven't done a ton of campaigning during that time, but as you continue to have conversations, does an event like that focus people's attention on the environment and that our planet is alive and it affects us every day?
Thanks, Jeff. And unfortunately, it does. I mean, it takes sometimes a crisis for people to realize, really the crisis that we're in. I know you had mentioned the tsunami, but I go back to this issue with our fuel tanks. I think for the longest time, people looked at groups that were active, that were, pushing, advocating for, decommissioning and closing down these fuel tanks that the Navy has over our aquifer. And for the longest time, people just looked at them as alarmists, as environmental alarmists that they didn't take really seriously, until the day that it happened when they opened up their tap water and there's fuel coming out of their tap water. And now one of the most pure water that you're going to taste on Earth, all of a sudden is polluted. And then now for people to realize, yes, this is an issue, but it's incredible to see the political will when people see the impact that it's having on them directly. A few months ago when we were talking about this issue before this crisis with, with the tap water, a lot of people, weren't really paying that much attention. But then now when we're sign waving in the street, in support of decommissioning these fuel tanks and closing down these fuel tanks, we get more, feedback from people and just saying, yes, this is what we need to do. But unfortunately, it takes a crisis of this magnitude for people to realize how fragile our Earth and our environment really is. And it's, and I am worried that it's going to take a catastrophic event for people to realize really the danger and the peril that we're in. But we need to have this sense of urgency, not just when a disaster happens, but we've got to have this sense of urgency in terms of what we're doing for our environment, because it is a living, breathing thing.
I am also not a doctorate level scholar of Dr. King. I don't think you are either, and I don't think either of us is pretending to be. But every year when we come to this holiday, and every time that Dr. King's name is brought up, I do think that really they're very related, but I guess you could call them separate. I think two very, very fundamental portions, I guess, of his message that I think are very, very overlooked. In fact, dramatically overlooked, and I think intentionally overlooked by some, is the economic message. The message that we deserve a minimum wage, we deserve healthcare, we deserve a good job, we deserve to be safe in that job, we deserve opportunities at these jobs, we deserve the ability, at a minimum, the ability to unionize. That white men, black men, men of color, women across the board, we deserve these things. As we go into the holiday tomorrow, and as the focus turns to Dr. King, as it usually does every time, at this time of year, and even with all the focus on voting rights, and that focus is absolutely justified, let's be honest. It is completely, of course, justified. Is it not, do you agree with me, or do you find that the economic message of Dr. King is one that seems to kind of get overlooked or sort of pushed to the side or silenced in some way?
Yeah, Jeff, no, definitely. I just feel like it's being silenced in a way. And I mean, the time that when he was assassinated, he was organizing the March to Washington, right, on behalf of economic policies. There was a story when he went into the Deep South, and then he saw children being unable, malnourished children in the United States of America that barely had food to eat. And I think that spoke to his conscience, and that was really what he was dedicating the rest of his work to. And I think it is being silenced. And I think we do need to take that as an example of Dr. King's work. Is just, that was the whole point of his March to Washington, and then just organizing, the workers' strike, the sanitation workers. But, one of the things, it just popped into my mind, one of the things I'd like to do in Congress, of course, is try to get Martin Luther King Jr. on our currency. I just saw there was the Maya Angelou just had a coin recently, but it's one of those things that, hey, why don't we have Martin Luther King on our currency? I think he speaks to really what's great about this country in terms of being able to impact change. But yes, I think the whole economic side of Martin Luther King's work, I think it is being silenced. I don't believe in conspiracy theories, but I feel like people are conveniently putting it to the side, and that needs to be brought up more, especially the day that we celebrate his day tomorrow.
How did Senator Sanders do in Hawaii during his two presidential runs?
Yeah, he actually won. Our delegates here in I want to say 2016, but my campaign manager and and our team, a lot of them are really big fans of Senator Sanders. And I was just telling them, I've just come across most of his work and what he's been speaking to, not as long as they have, but in terms of what he's speaking to, it's really just common sense politics. It's really common sense issues. And I wish there was a way that we could do it better, that we can get his message out so that as we discussed earlier, so that your average everyday person on the street can understand that when Senator Sanders speaks about Medicare for all, that how this is going to impact you. When he speaks about holding CEOs accountable, how does this impact you? And I feel like they've, I don't want to say the Democratic Party, but there's been certain elements in society that have kind of pushed him to the side as as this, person that's just kind of screaming out there in the wilderness. But I think it's time that we take him seriously in terms of the work that he's been pushing, in terms of the things that he's been pushing. He's been pushing for these things since the 60s and 70s. And I think the time is ripe that people finally understand now that what he's been speaking about actually makes a lot of sense. But yes, there's a big, large crowd here in Hawaii that definitely supports Senator Sanders.
I ask that because our guest last week, Amy Jo Hutchison, who is a fierce advocate on behalf of folks who are in poverty, and not just poverty, abject bottom of the rung of the ladder, if not under the ladder, types of poverty in West Virginia, one of the poorest states in the Union, the 47th poorest state in the Union. But yet, Senator Sanders won every single county there in both of his presidential runs in the primaries. My point being not necessarily an admiration society here for Senator Sanders. He's not going to fail or succeed on my accolades, but that the message, the policies, the message has a fertile ground. Would you agree with that for your district and for the state of Hawaii? Or think about 2016 when he was talking about Medicare for all. He's nuts and crazy old Bernie and how radical. And it's now a mainstream ideal. It still doesn't have the votes in the House, but there's 117, I think it is, co-sponsors. There were none when he was talking about this in 2016. There were practically none. I mean, there's a fertile ground for this message. This isn't radical, is it? You keep saying it's common sense. It's the New Deal. It's our own history, but it is really common sense. And there's a fertile ground for this, is there not?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you, Jeff. And I think that's where we've got to shift this message from people as, they've conveniently labeled it as radical, as extremist, but it's not. And it goes back to, these are things that are actually going to work, common sense principles and policies that are actually going to work. I mean, what's our de facto, policy? Trickle down economics. I mean, we can clearly say that it doesn't work. But I think it's time that people are finally realizing that Senator Sanders makes sense. But it's our job, those in the media and those that are running, to make sure that we take this, we take this message that it doesn't get co-opted into something that's, it's radical, it's extreme, it's socialist. But no, this is actually policy that'll work, and we've got to give it a shot. We've come to this point in this country where we've tried everything else. We've tried, trickle down economics, and people's lives are not better. And it's time that we actually look into these progressive platforms as a way to move this country forward. And yes, no, I think that the time is right where people are just, okay, he's not, just someone that's way out there in left field, but it's someone that's actually, yes, he's got really good solutions and really good answers.
And let's not forget, Randall makes an excellent point in the chat here that in 2016, Donald Trump ran on so many of Senator Sanders' policies. He was going to raise taxes on rich people. He was going to reverse the tax incentives and the offshoring of not just jobs, factories. We've lost over 67,000 factories, entire industrial plants we've lost since George W. Bush first came to office. And Donald Trump ran on reversing all of that. He was going to reinstitute a tariff system. And he did actually try. He did it very poorly, and it really didn't work. But he did at least try. The only thing he really succeeded in doing was handing away national park lands for oil and mining extraction, and he cut taxes on rich people and the largest corporations by $8.5 trillion. But he ran on this stuff. So he lied about all of it, but he ran on it. And again, I might be asking the same question over and over, but doesn't that show that there is a fertile ground out there, that voters are listening to these policy proposals and saying, yes, that makes sense?
Yeah, Jeff, and I go back to this whole notion of money in politics. right? When people are finally, yes, they believe in these programs, they believe in these principles, but why can't we not get it passed? And I think, as you said, when it comes back down to it, who's in the ear of our elected officials? Who is there as lobbyists? Who is there in the halls of Congress speaking to to our congressional delegations? And it goes back to money in politics. My campaign, I've pledged that we're not going to take corporate PAC money, but it's just some of that stuff is just kind of common. Again, and I'm sorry to belabor the point, just common sense. But I think the danger, or one of the things that we need to guard against, is, of course, when we elect leaders, that are running on these platforms, how can we make sure that they stay true to their word and they're not influenced by money in politics? And that's something that I've given a lot of thought to, because people have asked me, how can we trust you, or how can we make sure that you're going to follow through on these things, that you're not just talking the talk. And as someone that's not a career politician, I just go back to that, and I know who I'm serving, and I know why I'm running, and I know who I'm going to be fighting for. And if that day ever comes, and as my campaign manager Nadia says, when I'm no longer there, then it's when I'm no longer being true to who I am and who I'm fighting for, then it's time for me to go.
Well, I guess I'm asking because you do have, the incumbent is a corporate Democrat, and there is ground for these proposals. People want these proposals, and I don't think there's any better evidence than that, than the near, well, in 2020, I think it was 74 million, and whatever it was in 16, the number is escaping me, that voted for a man who said, I'm going to do these things. Even as a Republican who said, I'm going to do these things. So Republicans across this country, or at least self-identified Republicans, because I don't think there's a lot of real ones, but self-identified Republicans across this country said, yeah, I'm for that. He's finally gonna look out for us. Except the problem is that our party's been doing it the entire damn time. But we've been lied to and lied about so much that huge sections of our society do not believe that the Democratic Party is standing up for them. And it's a wall that I find very, very hard to get through. Hopefully you're having more success, because it's just like talking to a stone statue sometimes here in this Commonwealth, that there's a Democrat could cure cancer tomorrow and it would still be some kind of insidious plot. I mean, there's just some folks you can't reach, but it just seems to me that I think there's a lot more progressives in the Democratic Party than we get credit for. We just happen to be down at the grassroots. We're not running things at the DNC. We're not the ones in the big shiny office building in DC. And there's not enough of us in the shiny office buildings at state capitals across the country either. But I actually think down on the ground, if you will allow such a phrase, at the ground level, street level, precinct, your precinct committee people, there's a hell of a lot more of us than there are the corporates. They just happen to be the ones at the top with all the money. Does any of that make sense to you? Do you agree with any of that, or are you more?
I agree with that, Jeff. I mean, I think one of the theories of social change, right, is we bring the top together with the bottom. And that's the way we can actually, impact change. For someone that's running for the first time, people say, oh, why don't you run, for a smaller position, or why don't you run for local office instead? But I tell them, no, we need to be in those positions and at the top. We need to be in those positions, running for Congress, running for Senate, or whatever other leadership positions. Yeah, we do a lot of our work at the grassroots level, but until we get, until the bottom, until the grassroots merges with those at the top, then change isn't going to happen. And that's, part of my theory of change is that we need to be in those in those leadership positions at the top. And I encourage more people that are working in the grassroots, hey, go for it. Why not? I mean, otherwise, nothing's going to change. But I completely agree with you, Jeff.
Let me ask you about January 6th. We just had the anniversary of January 6th. The January 6th Commission continues its work. Very generally, I mentioned before that I think there's 3 years left to determine what is left of the American experiment, or if it survives in any way, shape, or form. A note that I think we might have talked about on the phone as we got ready for today. I think I may have mentioned this, and I know I mentioned it on the program last week. The Canadian government is running a governmental, every ministry is involved, set of emergency scenarios and drills and what if scenarios. The what if is what if or when democracy ends in the United States and how it will affect Canada. Again, I said this earlier in the program, I think we're in a 3-year window to see what's left of this. This midterm, believe it or not, the odd year election in 23, which we see now as extremely important, school boards, election officials across the country. And then, of course, the presidential election in 2024. If a very much more competent fascist were to win, like a Josh Hawley or a Tom Cotton, a Rick Scott, there's nothing left. We're doomed. We're done for. The United States is being listed by the United Nations as a declining democracy. We are actually moving backward. We are last, dead last, I believe, of all the OECD nations, and we are actually listed in with some nations like the Philippines and Honduras and Hungary as far as press freedom. Economic mobility, we are dead last of the so-called first world nations in economic mobility. If you are born poor, you will die poor. You will. If you are born middle class, you have a much better chance of dying poor than you do of either staying middle class or, heaven forbid, moving up. I am the first generation to do worse off economically than my parents. My children, if I had any, would be the second generation. Their children will be the third. Only 3 generations in the history of this nation, even going back to before we were a nation, have done worse economically than the generation prior then. And those 3 happen to be 3 in a row. And this is all by design. It's not by accident, it's all by design. Give us a hopeful, you are a hopeful figure to me. Give us something to say, because I know you have to leave us at the bottom of the hour, but this will be my last question before I turn the floor over to you and let you talk about anything you want. But give us from your point of view, as a candidate, as a citizen of this country, as a human being, the real state of things as you see it, and the hope that you continue to see.
Thanks, Jeff. I mean, you started with January 6th. I know this country has a checkered past. I know there's a lot of things that we've done in our history in this country when it seems like we've taken steps backward towards our idea of what this country can be like. As an immigrant to this country, I still believe deeply in what this country represents. Really, that beacon upon a hill. Really, that beacon of democracy, that we strive to be. That city upon a hill. And I still believe in that vision, despite our checkered history, despite what's going on in this country now. But it's going to take all of us to make this happen. It's going to take our collective efforts to really make this happen. And I still believe deeply in the work that we're doing, that we can move this country forward. Otherwise, why try? If we take a pessimistic view of this country, yes, there's a lot of issues that we're dealing with. Yes, there's sexism and racism. There's people that are taking advantage of workers. There's a lot of issues that we're trying to figure out. But I really believe in the calling of this country. Even though I was born in the Philippines, I would say I wouldn't want to live in any other country in the world, because we have a chance to shape the direction of our future. And as you mentioned, yes, our children and our generation now is actually far worse off than our parents' generation. But at the same time, we still have the sense of freedom that we can, through the democratic process, through electoral process, that we can really shape this country's future, and we can really move this country forward. So I keep hope in that vision, Jeff. Otherwise, why try? Otherwise, we can just accept the way things are, and that just accept that things are going downward. But I don't want to believe that. I want to believe that we can really control our destiny, and that's what's great about this country. It's just through our own work and our belief and our vision that we can make things better. That's really what the social experiment, for the country, that's what it represents to me. And that's as an immigrant coming to this country. I had just as a story, I had someone, that I was speaking with on the street, and they were saying, "Oh, this country's a joke. This country's a joke. We're all, it's all going to go up in flames." But I challenged them. Why don't you do something about it? Why don't you help make this country better? We can't just continue to, to air our grievances. We've got to do something, take some action to move this country forward. And I want to end with that, Jeff, kind of on this hopeful message for all your listeners that are out there. Things look really dire right now. We're going through a pandemic. We're looking at voter suppression laws. We're looking at, a minority party in Congress that's pushing their own agenda and things that are for the people that are being pushed back. But, I just challenge everyone that's listening to this call and everyone that's on social media, stand up for these, stand up for things that you believe in, stand up for the principles and platforms that you believe in, and make your voices heard. You can do that through the ballot by voting, or you can do that by supporting campaigns, people that are running, especially in this coming elections for 2022. I think it's critical that we make our voices heard and that we don't give up. We don't throw in the towel. As someone that's had a challenging history, being raised by a single mother with 6 kids, don't throw in the towel. Don't give up hope in this country, and keep fighting until the very end. And that's I'd like to leave with that, Jeff. And I'd ask people that are listening, go to my website, sergio4hawaii.com. You can learn more about my platform and what I'm pushing for. And if you can, make a donation or, just leave a message. I'd really appreciate it. And Jeff, it's just been such a pleasure to be on your show. And as you had mentioned the other day, you're not going to feel like hours went by, and it's.
Did I get it right?
Yeah, and I've just really enjoyed the conversation, and thank you for Randall and for Chris that called, and I just love the interaction. So it's just really been such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Well, before you go, I know you have to go. I just want to, again, you did wrap up, you did hit a couple things, but I just want to be clear, and I want to offer you again, if there's anything that we talked about that you didn't think you got to finish a thought on, if there's any topic that we did not bring up that you want to highlight, and then just one more time, tell people how they can follow you, find you, interact with you, campaign, just, I want to open up the floor to you, and just, you pretty much hit all of it, but if there's anything we missed or anything that you didn't get to fully explain, and again, contact info, please have at it. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Jeff. So again, Sergio4Hawaii.com is my website. You can follow me on Instagram, Sergio4Hawaii, same thing, on Twitter, Sergio4Hawaii. You can email me directly too, Sergio@Sergio4Hawaii.com. Please feel free to reach out to me. I definitely love your support. If you can donate to the campaign, that would be a big help. I am going against, a corporate-backed incumbent, and it's the only way that we can beat a corporate-backed incumbent is with people power and running on a people-centered platform, and that's what I believe in. And then I'm going to, campaign on that. And the primary is on August 13th. That only gives me about 6-7 months. So time is really of the essence. And
it'll go faster than you can imagine.
Yeah, it's just like this show.
It's gonna be the quickest year. It's gonna be the quickest year of your life. The busiest and fastest year of your life.
Right.
Well, before
Jeff,
you
can
go,
I show my video real quick? Is that okay?
yeah, no, please. Yes, I want people to. I'm going. Oh, wait, I have to do. Oh, darn it! I need to be able to allow you to. Oh, I think if I make you co-host, you can do that. So I will do that. you have co-hosting abilities, which means you should be able to share a screen. Sergio is going to show us a campaign video, which is cool. We actually don't do a lot of this on the program. So here comes, if you are watching on Facebook, you will get to see his video. If you're listening on hot101.net and WTCP, just listen in. This is Sergio's campaign video, and I'm actually really looking forward to this. This is cool. We don't do a lot of video sharing on the program, so this might be fun. Let's have at it. Go ahead, sir, whenever you're ready.
Thanks, Jeff. This is my website. Please visit my website, sergioforhawaii.com, and I'll just play this quick. This was on our campaign launch, November 14th, when we officially launched the campaign. So in about 50 days, we've raised $50,000 and have over 500 individual supporters. So it's just really a testament to what our campaign is all about. But let me play it, and hopefully
today to say we need a new beginning. I stand here to say that change is going to come. I stand here to say that we need new energy. My name is Sergio Alcubilla, and I'm running for Congress. I will bring that new energy. I will bring that bolt of lightning to Congress so that we know who our representatives fight for. I know I fight for the people. I know I fight for this planet over corporate interests and corporate profits. I just don't talk the talk, but I walk the walk. As a public interest leader, as a nonprofit leader and public interest attorney, I've walked with and stood with working class families and seniors who are struggling to live here in Hawaii. I've walked with our low wage workers and our union workers who are fighting for dignity and respect. I've walked with our public school students who deserve an equal opportunity for success. I walk with them because I know their stories. Their stories are part of my story. I say that now that today, that 7-year-old kid that came to this country, not knowing how to speak English, raised by a single mother with 6 kids, can stand here today now and say that he's running for Congress.
sorry, Jeff. I think maybe it wasn't sharing.
Well, the video didn't go, but the audio went through. Everybody heard the speech.
I'm not going to take corporate money. You know, I know who I fight for. I know who I stand for, and I know who stands with me. So I ask you now to join me. I ask you now to walk with me. All right, enough talk. Let's walk.
Nice.
Thank you, Jeff. I
The
appreciate
call
it.
to
We're
action
working
at
on
the
our-
end. Absolutely. The call to action at the end. Beautiful. It doesn't matter that the pictures didn't go. The sound went through, and good reaction
Good.
here on Facebook. The sound went through. I have one last thing for you. I have a bad piece of news for you. And that is you are part of the family now, sir. So we will, you're in, sorry. You're in now. We hope the very, very best for you. We ask you, your family, your team, your supporters, everybody who's going to be working with you, please stay safe out in the campaign trail. Your health, physically, sleep, drink water, make sure you eat, all that fun stuff. And you'd be surprised how many candidates will look at me and go, well, yeah, no kidding, I'm going to eat and drink. But then you get busy. And then the schedule gets packed, and then you realize you don't do any of those things, and you don't sleep, and then everybody gets sick. Probably hard to catch a cold in Hawaii, but please don't do so. But we will be following you. You are a member of the Kennedy Effect family now, and regardless of the outcome of this election, and obviously we pray for you, and we hope for you, and we'll be rooting for you. I'm sure that folks in the audience will be supporting you, if they can, even, and folks, trust me, even a buck, $5, $10 means a lot to a campaign like this. It really, really does. No one knows how to stretch a dollar like a broke campaign. I'm telling you, a buck, $2, $5, $10, $20 means everything to a campaign like Sergio's. So we beg you, I mean, literally, please don't let this be the only time you come and see us. You're a member of the family. You are welcome here always. If you have something that you want my audience to know about or you think they should know about, even if you pop in for 5 or 10 minutes and you have to run, the door is open to you. You are welcome here. You have a home here. And I'm so very, very grateful for you taking so much time to be with us and tell folks about you. We appreciate it. And we love making new friends and we love adding to the family, and you're in now.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jeff. So as we say in Hawaii, aloha, and as we say in Filipino, salamat. So thank you so much. And I look forward to coming back and joining you on the show sometime.
Thanks so much. We really appreciate it. You stay safe and healthy. That is Sergio, 1st Congressional District of Hawaii. And I have to say, when I called him to speak to him, to do a little prep for the program, because as a guest, you watch me, I'm getting very stuffed up now. Time to do something here. But as you watch me on the program, if you watch on Facebook, if you're just listening on radio, you don't get to see all of this. And you're not missing anything by it, by the way, really. But I'm very busy. I'm getting messages through the phone. I'm checking the emails. I'm checking Twitter. I Google things to fact check myself, or DuckDuckGo, and I'm watching the feed over on Facebook. So I'm very, very busy. It can be very disconcerting to a guest to think that I'm not listening to them. And so I usually try to talk to the guests ahead of time, see a couple of things that we're going to talk about. I do very little prep as far as what we're going to talk about, because I really do pride. I feel very strongly that the discussions that we have should be very, very organic. It should be very natural. If someone gives an answer, well, then we should be able to run off in that tangent. But it can be disconcerting for a guest to see me not looking at them, not listening, not shaking my head, not because I'm busy with the 4 screens that I have in front of me and a mixing board and just all these different things. But one of the things that we talked about is the kind of insurgent nature of his campaign, and he's just a friendly person, just a warm, wonderful human being. And I gotta say, $5, $10, $20, $25, it means the world to someone, to a candidate like that. And I think he carries himself with a tremendous amount of class. It's really easy to personally attack people in politics, and it's become very much a cottage industry to just personally attack people. He could have easily sat here and said, well, Representative Case is a dirty slimy. He didn't do any of that. He just said we have policy differences. I think he's out of touch with folks in this district. I think he's out of touch with Hawaii. I think he bought himself a seat because he had money. And a lot of folks do it. They buy political positions because they can, not because they want them, or not because they want to serve, but because they can. Why did David Robinson play basketball? Because he could. He never loved it. He did it because he could, because he was good at it. I think we have a lot of folks that are doing that now in politics. They're buying political seats because they can. They like the perks that come with it, the travel, the adulation, the media, the people recognizing them, thinking they're important and so on, and they are important. Remember, President Kennedy said that politics can be a noble profession. And I think it's good folks like Sergio who remind us that it can be a noble profession and should be a noble profession. Now, George sent me a message behind the scenes that he needs to leave us and run outside. We are expecting a major winter storm here in the Pennsylvania tri-state, should I say Northeast, really the whole Northeast, from DC all the way up Baltimore into Delaware, PA, Jersey, New York, and up into New England, expecting a major storm over the next couple of days. It's going to be an odd one here, I think, in the Lehigh Valley, because temperatures are actually supposed to rise overnight. which is an odd phenomena any season of the year. But it was in the teens most of the day here, up into the 20s, and actually get up into the 40s overnight. But it's going to be a sloppy mess. So George is going to run out and start icing or de-icing things, I believe, or at least preparing. So we are going to wrap up and allow him to run off and play in the snow, because don't we all still enjoy, like little kids, playing in the snow? Here's the plan for next week. We will be back with you live. I continue to try to work with a couple of guests. I shouldn't say that. Work with friends of this program, Patricia and Randall and Christopher, to get some clergy members here. I have been working for the better part of probably a year and a half to get members of the clergy on this program so that we can talk about the difference between true faith messages and evangelicalism. Because it is my sense, a scholarly, theological, history-based sense, that there's a very large difference between Christianity and evangelicalism. And so I've been trying to get some members of the clergy on to discuss exactly that. I have been given lots of suggestions of folks, but I have not nailed anyone down. That is the plan for next week. We will be back with you live. 16 and 7 is 23. The 23rd, we will be back with you. We have a straight run of shows right up until Super Bowl Sunday. We will take Super Bowl Sunday off. There's no need for me to be here when, about half the country is watching the Super Bowl. Even folks who aren't interested in American football usually watch the Super Bowl. And depending on who's in it, I might even be somewhat interested in it. I'm not been too terribly interested in the NFL in recent years, but even I will be watching that, especially if anybody's interested in it. I'll probably be watching that. But we have a straight run of shows all the way up to Super Bowl Sunday, and then probably a straight run all the way up through Easter, I should think. Yeah, we got a lot of programs coming up. And get ready, folks, because there might be a couple of programs in there where it's just you, me, and George and Kristen, because it is, even though getting guests has become a lot easier than it has been in the past, it's still an effort. It's a damn effort every every darn time. It is a hell of an effort to get guests. But that said, we should wrap it up. George, is there anything you would like to add, or anything that you wanted to follow up on, or anything that you wanted to mention before we go? We may have stepped away to go out and de-ice. Possibly.
No, I didn't step away.
Not yet. Is there anything you wanted to add, throw in there, share with the folks before we say goodnight for this week?
Nope. I don't. I'm really sorry. I don't have anything. So I'm just trying to get stuff, done around the homestead, and just make sure that
batten down the hatches up there.
Yeah.
Is it snowing up there already?
Yeah, it's snowing here already.
Is it? All right. I got an email right in the middle of the program from the management company of our complex here that it was already snowing. So I'm looking forward to going and look at it, see how bad it's going to be. But it isn't. I don't know if your weather is the same, but it's supposed to get warmer here.
Warmer?
Throughout the night, the temperatures are actually supposed to rise.
Oh, because
everything's going to turn into rain.
Yeah, the rain.
Yeah. Although the rain apparently is supposed to be quite significant. It's supposed to be a lot of rain. But it could lead to a pretty messy morning.
It'd probably lead to flooding, icy rain, and power outages. That's why I was trying to get a generator shack upgraded
right
this weekend. So I finally got it done, but I should be good. So
well, we shall return next week. We will reconvene. No, I shouldn't probably not get into that necessarily. Not sure when we're starting the Wednesday program, but I think there is a Wednesday program coming. Randall, very quickly, sir. George has to go spread salt. Go ahead. Really quick.
Yeah, right now the temperature is so low here that maybe a quarter inch of snow, if you step on it, it turns immediately to ice. But I'm trying, here in Delaware County, southeast PA, it's supposed to turn to rain as the temperature goes up. So I'm hoping that, it gets rid of, that it actually warms the sub-zero temperature of the ground up. So if you step on snow, it doesn't turn to ice immediately. So I'm praying for that, Jeff. And I don't know how it is out there in central PA, but I hope the same thing happens to you guys out there.
Well, Northampton, here in the Lehigh Valley, we're supposed to get a lot of, I think it's like 1 to 3 inches of snow, and then
you're northeast of me. I apologize.
We're supposed to get, I think, 1 to 3, but then it's supposed to, there could be freezing rain in there, could be sleet in there, could be, and then turn to all rain, which is why I think it might be a really, really slushy, messy morning. George is in the Poconos. I suspect, George, you're supposed to get probably a lot more snow. Is it, or is it even supposed to, is the temperature going to rise up there overnight, or at least, or it's probably already colder than it is here? Are you expecting so much more snow and ice, or just, or same thing that we are?
Yeah, I was wondering, I was born under a bad sign, so yeah, I'm supposed to get some more. So.
Hey, good gig from a late 60s band. I was born in a bad time. Good song. Good song.
So.
All right, gang. We are going to wrap it up for.
Jeff, do you have any idea what Groove wrote in a bad sign? It's a bad sign.
Isn't that from a clean? It's a CCR song, isn't it?
Nah. You're thinking of Born in a Bad Sign is, I'll give you some clues.
Oh, quick, we're running out of time.
Eric Clapton was in the band.
Cream?
Yes.
Oh, that didn't take me too long.
Born in a Bad Sign by Cream, 1967.
See, I'm an old soul, Randall. Told you I was older than you.
I got an incredible music soul.
All right, we're gonna wrap up, my friend. We're gonna let George go take care of some ice.
I know.
I know he's really looking forward to it.
And George, you got to take care of mice. And listen, man, connect me with your Facebook Messenger when you're free.
Yeah, we got to get the folks ready for next week. We got to get the folks on for next week.
Well, I asked my fellow Warren Wilson College buddy that graduated, from seminary, that just retired last January as a Presbyterian minister his whole life. I've asked him to get in touch with you again today. Do you have any? Just curiosity. Have you any other ministers or clergy that have committed for next week?
No, and that's the problem. No one has as of now. We need to.
Well, maybe you should find something else to do next week.
If I don't get anybody, I'm not gonna have much of a choice. But we're gonna wrap up so that it will make the show conversion for George a lot easier. It seems like when we cross that 3-hour threshold and break into the fourth, things seem to exponentially get longer and longer in time. for the video conversion. I have no explanation for that. George has told me repeatedly, when the program is right at 3 hours or less, he can convert it in a matter of minutes. When we break into that 4th hour, it takes him hours to do it.
Wow.
And I don't know
Okay,
I don't know what the big difference is. I don't know what the big difference is.
I
It's
apologize, George.
no,
I apologize, George.
I think he took off already, actually. I think he's out. I think he's already ran out, but yes, he's off screen. So yes. Well, anyway, Randall, thank you as always. I know I say thank you every time that we communicate, but thank you as always. You've we have, as I mentioned in the comments of the program on Facebook, we have so much genuine, sincere, wonderful support with our viewers and listeners, but none outshine you, my friend. The number of people you've brought to the group and continue to do so, sharing the program, just everything. So thank you, my friend. You are invaluable. You mean a lot to us, and as always, you stay healthy this week. Don't go shovel if you're not up to it. That all that fun stuff. Stay healthy. Stay away from the COVID. All of it. Just be there. All right, and we will.
I'm still in 2 years. 2 years, except for very close family isolation. And I've got, I guess first I bought NK95 masks, and then I got my N95 mask in. That was a big load, like 50. So I gave out all the KN95 masks to my children and grandchildren and my wife. And yeah, I'm getting ready to give out N95s to my family. We had Christmas today. We finally had Christmas today.
Well, good.
Because Christmas, one family had the new Omicron.
Yeah, well, it's not important about, or to me, it's not important about when you have it. It's that you have it and that it's enjoyable and that the family is there. And, that's the important thing, is that you have Christmas. It doesn't necessarily matter when you have it. At least you got to have it. And that's the important part.
Absolutely. We had Christmas at like 12:30, lunch, dinner, and we opened presents, and everybody got home before it got dark or the snow or whatever's coming in. And tomorrow is Martin Luther King's birthday.
Right.
Celebration. And you're right. You said earlier in your show, he should absolutely put on a bill. Absolutely. I replaced Andrew Jackson.
Yeah.
A racist.
Yeah. Yeah.
That killed 50,000 Native Americans on the Trail of Tears.
And openly defied the Supreme Court.
And did a lot of other nasty things.
And whose presidential portrait did Trump have hanging up in the Oval Office?
Well, exactly.
Yep.
He had
Andrew
the
Jackson.
racist
Jackson.
presidential painting behind him.
But just to tell you though, Randall, how things change. When I was very young in politics and just starting to get involved, formally involved and being invited to these committee dinners and, rubber chicken dinners and so on, as we, say jokingly. One of the dinners that the Warren County Democratic Committee in New Jersey, used to have was the Jefferson Jackson Day dinner.
Yeah.
And it was, and so many Democratic committees across the country had the same thing. And now think about that, just 30 years later, and just 30 years. I mean, 30 years is not actually really all that long when you think about it. You would never have a Jackson Day dinner.
Drop the Jackson part.
Right, exactly.
The Jackson
should be Jefferson.
Jackson.
Yeah, and my name for the dinner would be entirely too long. It would be Jefferson, Madison, Roosevelt.
I would go
Kennedy,
Jefferson,
Johnson.
Roosevelt.
Well, remember, Teddy was not exactly the most accepting human
No,
being, and not by a long shot, but he did break up the big corporations.
Not RFD Roosevelt's cousin, Teddy.
Yeah.
He did a lot of good things.
Yep.
Yes, he did.
He was not the
He did a lot
most,
of good things.
not the most racially
Right.
open, but he did national parks, broke up the big trusts, the
He
square
broke up
deal,
big
said that
trust, and our Democratic Party has let the whole country down
Right.
for 40 years of using the antitrust laws and other
Well, not
laws
enforcing
to
them.
break up big trusts. And that's where we are.
All right, I gotta go, my brother.
You got it, bro.
All right, see ya.
God bless.
Ladies and gentlemen, 8 o'clock. That is the end of our program. We will rejoin you next week live. For all of you across Facebook at hot101.net and at TCP, we thank you very much for being with us. We could not be here if you are not there. Please take care of yourselves and each other. Until next week.